This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate second and final part of what if Kid Naruto Awakens, Devil Sword of Yamato. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
998, 999, 1000. The one-eyed Chunin shouted, "Now I want 50 more for half-assing that set." While his orange book was nowhere to be seen, they were still training even though he had put them through enough to kill some genin. Despite their groans, the two boys remained where they were about 20 feet apart. They were in a handstand position, each balancing on the razor-sharp point of a kunai with their pointer finger. That finger would disappear if there was even the slightest distraction. They had to continuously modify the chakra flow to permit appropriate movement. When they started doing push-ups with that finger, that was just one aspect of the exhausting workout. "Switch!" Kakashi yelled. All at once the boys pushed off right away, switched hands, and started the 50 again. In order to keep them alert, Kakashi would occasionally instruct them to switch hands. They had already done this on each finger. You would quickly conclude that the two were severely low on chakra and that their bodies must be almost at the point of giving out on them after adding the thousands of push-ups, sit-ups, juggernauts, laps around Konoha, and other chakra exercises to the mix. Their pride was the only thing keeping them going. The two did not move when the 50 were finished. Kakashi allowed them to remain there for some time. "Enough!" he exclaimed. The two boys fell, landing in a rather indecent heap on the ground as they battled the stars in their vision. Their chest heaved for air, every muscle burned, and they were drenched in sweat. There was a loud clatter as something struck the ground beside each of them. "An Anbu training katana is next to both of you. You two will spar once more. Feel free to use any attack you can muster." Kakashi demonstrated both the fundamentals of sword fighting practiced by Anbu and his own family. Both of them absorbed it like sponges. Naruto incorporated it into his style by fusing it with the knowledge he had previously gained from Gekko Hayate. Sasuke prepared himself in case he ever had to use or defend against a sword by meticulously memorizing every move. The two boys grabbed the katana beside them and stumbled to their feet. Their legs shook, straining to support them. Naruto used his human hand to hold his sword in a reverse grip. It was just above the floor because he was crouching. Sasuke kept both hands on the hilt and held his normally in front of him. In contrast to Naruto's squatting position, he stood proudly and upright. With everything they had left, the two charged at one another, leaving a trail of chakra behind them as the blades moved. The water and air around Naruto's blade turned into a swirling maelstrom as it glowed a soft blue before flames, and their cold-blooded brother, lightning, crackled around Sasuke's sword, turning it a violent yellow. A storm of fire erupted. There shouldn't be enough chakra left for them to elicit such a response. At most, Naruto's sword would have created a tiny wind blade, while Sasuke's should have only created sparks. The inexpensive metal used to make the swords that Kakashi gave them taught ninja how to use elemental chakra. The only drawback was that the metal itself was so weak that it would break easily under intense force, rendering it useless in real combat. Making practical blades out of this metal required a talented blacksmith. For the blade to channel chakra and remain lethal effective in close combat, the metals would need to be balanced. Some, like Kiri's 7 swordsmen of mist, used their own chakra nature to increase the weapon's power. Certain blades, such as the second Hokage's lost sword of the Thunder Spirit, were imbued with a particular element regardless of who wielded it. Both varieties were uncommon and, when handled properly, very potent. The gap between Sasuke and Naruto narrowed quickly. The earth beneath Naruto's maelstrom was torn apart as it dragged across the ground. The air next to him was sliced by Sasuke's firestorm. Sasuke used a horizontal swing, but Naruto spun around on one foot and attacked with a downward vertical slash. The blades collided in a nature chakra explosion. From the locked swords jumped enormous bursts of flame and electrically charged water. Each boy exerted every ounce of strength in an attempt to defeat the other, unable to withstand the impact. The swords abruptly broke under the strain in front of one another. The boys collapsed to their knees. Red eyes with blood slits met red eyes with two tomos spinning wildly, both of them using their willpower to keep from losing. They both said, "You had enough yet, Teme, Dobi?" At the same time. They said, "You." Naruto's devil bringer caught Sasuke's flying fist. Sasuke blocked Naruto's punch and grabbed Naruto's wrist as his human hand swung out. "Wish!" was the final desperate move as their heads collided. Their blood mixed together and spilled onto the floor. The darkness at the edges of their vision made them both grit their teeth in agony. A few seconds later, Kakashi made the decision to step in. He walked over to have a better look after neither boy answered, saying, "That's enough, we'll call it a draw." He was shocked by what he saw. They refused to lose to each other, even when they're both unconscious. With their arms' muscles still shaking, they knelt before one another and struggled to outdo the other. The black eyes clashed with the lifeless blue ones. They both fell to the side when Kakashi squeezed a pressure point in their shoulders. In their own unique ways, These two geniuses possess immense power and potential. They are both very similar and very different at the same time. Their ability to balance each other out is astounding. He created a pair of shadow clones. Kakashi was left to his thoughts as they each snatched a student and a Chunin exam paper before leaping off to bring them home. Sasuke's mental lineage and Naruto's physical lineage continuously pushing one another to get stronger. Kakashi sighed deeply. Even their natures feed off each other. The fire fed by wind and the water charged with electricity. Well, I'll save myself some trouble later because my hair is already silver. Both civilians and ninjas bustled through Konoha's congested market district. Both honest businesspeople and dishonest criminals promoted their products. You could find everything you needed here, regardless of your line of work. Weapons, tools, clothes, food, and even souvenirs for visitors. A blonde and a blue-haired woman are seen strolling in the direction of a ramen stand. Both of them were stunning examples of the fairer sex. Men who merely glanced at them were unable to muster the courage to do more than gaze. Any man who happened to approach the two women was frightened by the aura that emanated from them. As they entered the booth, the girl with the blue hair asked, "Why are we here again?" "I have decided to surprise Master with 2 bowls of ramen since he is going to participate in the Chunin exams. He should be nearly recovered from his training by the time we get back," the brunette said. "I don't know how Devil Boy can eat so much of this stuff. If you didn't limit him he would probably eat it every day." "Oh, you seem concerned for Master. Has seeing him so beat up from training brought this out, or maybe it was his recent marking of you?" Lady said irritably. "Hey, he surprised me all right." After grinning and thanking Ayame and her father for the ramen, Trish left with Lady in tow. He limped into the house with that cage bunchin, and if I recall right, you went over to offer to help instead of accepting. He kissed you, and you didn't resist when he marked you. In fact, you seemed to prefer it, before he passed out in your arms. In contrast to her dark blue hair, the lady's face was burning crimson, and she felt something odd, which made her embarrassment go away. "Do you feel that?" "So I finally get to see her?" Trish asked, nodding as she looked around the crowd for the source of the familiar aura. She soon spotted a brown-haired girl with fang-like marks on her cheeks. Hana looked up from her to-do list as if sensing her gaze, and her eyes met Trish's as the world around them vanished, leaving only Trish, Lady, and Hana as she was examined. Hana was unable to move because her body simply would not react. Hana heard a whispered voice say, "I approve," as reality returned. Hana felt her limbs react. The blonde woman was leaving with a composed demeanor, as though nothing had happened, and her hand reached up to touch the mark that indicated she was Naruto's. She dismissed the odd encounter, saying, "He already has a mate, and she approves of me. She would consider it later. For now, she needed to finish gathering supplies." Lady hurried to catch up with Trish as she left, asking, "What happened and who was that?" "Master has marked her, just like as I only gave her my approval, but she still needs to prove herself." "Oh, are you happy with me? I've witnessed your ability to bring Master joy after you moved in with us. I accepted you a few days later. All he had to do was mark you." "What would have happened if you hadn't accepted us?" Lady thought strangely. "Okay." For emphasis, her devil trigger's brilliant gold aura flared. "If you posed a threat to Master, I would have killed you like any other enemy. It's as simple as that." The training they had been doing together had given Lady a taste of Trish's advanced taijutsu and her mastery of lightning, and she was confident that Trish would be a formidable foe. Only Naruto himself could possibly control her. "Temari, why are we repeating this?" Nervously, Kankuro asked. "I told you I'm worried about her, because she's been so quiet lately." Temari sighed. She told her brother, "She hasn't even displayed bloodlust." "You say that as if it were a negative thing." Kankuro nearly let out a whimper. Stealing her nerves, Temari turned to the door and knocked, expecting an angry response, but instead she got none. She resisted the urge to strangle her brother. "See, she's not even NYU. Damn it, I just had to say something. Don't misunderstand Kankuro. He did care about Gaara and NYU in particular. He just enjoyed living, and the sand that could easily crush you scared him." Temari pulled Kankuro in with her before he could run, and they approached cautiously so as not to frighten her. Temari opened the door just enough for them to see NYU sitting on the bed, hugging her knees close. "Is Gaara sleeping, NYU?" The redhead nodded with a tiny twitch. The one-tailed demon Shukaku, Gaara, and NYU all shared a single body. NYU appeared to embody all of a child's kindness and innocence, but her shyness concealed it. Gaara symbolized all of the resentment and rage stemming from the difficulties of being Shukaku's container. And Shukaku was simply a demon with a great thirst for blood and no mercy at all. In order to prevent Shukaku from escaping unless both the body and the mind were asleep, it was frequently necessary for Gaara or NYU to sleep, or go dormant while the other took care of the body still entered a stasis similar to sleep, which allowed the persona in control little to no movement. To put it simply, it was like sleeping with your eyes open. The awareness was there, but it did not serve a purpose. It prevented the body from randomly failing due to sleep deprivation, and it provided everyone in Suna with a sense of security because they knew that the demon could not be accidentally released. Kankuro took a cautious step back, Tamari tensed, and NYU squeezed her eyes shut before going limp. When the girl opened her eyes again, the innocence was gone, replaced by anger and hatred. Gaara? Tamari asked thoughtfully. What are you looking for? Gaara remained motionless, but she managed to keep them in view. Tamari looked to Kankuro for assistance, but he pointed to the sand on the floor that wasn't there when they entered, warning them that any abrupt movements could result in their deaths. We were just wondering if anything was bothering you lately. Uzumaki Naruto, exclaimed Gaara. That genin with the silver hair we met? I'm going to kill him. Gaara's hand swung out, and suddenly Kankuro was covered in sand. He was flung against the wall with such force that the apartment seemed to tremble, and another wave of sand struck him, pinning him to the wall. I will only kill him. As her brother's life was being crushed by the sand, Gaara's demonic voice yelled. Gaara, stop it. He was unaware. Tamari was unable to move to assist because she was covered in sand. I apologize, Gaara. When it appeared that she would kill him, all of the sand fell to the ground, taking Kankuro with it. Tamari hurried to Kankuro, who was huddled in the corner, feeling powerless without his puppet. Rising from the bed, Gaara made her way to the window. Where are you heading? Over her brother, Tamari asked from her position. Her brief response was, to kill him. Gaara, you have no idea what Chunin is capable of. Please just wait for the Chunin exams. He could have killed Kankuro with ease, as you witnessed. Screaming out the window, she said, I am not Kankuro. We must go after her. She might be killed. Her voice was filled with worry. I doubt it, but let me grab Karasu. Curious, said the gracefully feminine voice. What? When Naruto woke up, he felt a hand play in his silver hair and another gently stroke his face. Curiosity, I said. Naruto opened his eyes to see a stunning woman with his head in her lap, standing on a patch of blood-red grass surrounded by roses in the middle of the sewer. You've turned out so curious under my influence. Her crimson-slitted eyes gazed into his blue, and a necklace with the kanji for seal on it hung just above her bosom. She had smooth, pale skin with gentle features, and her long, blood-red hair pooled around her. Her hair covered her delicate but full curves in an exotic way, and the only thing keeping her modest were the 9 tails. He jumped away without even making a ripple when he realized who it was, and his hand flew to his side, finding Yamato, who had not been there previously. Kyuubi, what do you mean influence? You don't know. Descendant of Sparta? The woman's red-hued lips curled into a smile. How do you think your family's legacy got so strong? Your power is growing as it does because of me. But something like that. As a demon lord with the strength to defeat the Dark Knight Sparta, I am the Kyuubi. Feeding the legacy in your blood to make it strong enough to balance with human blood was an easy task. She eyed him like a piece of meat. The results so far are rather interesting and I must say satisfactory. But why assist me? What's the point? Well, why wouldn't I? I chose you to be my vassal after all. You chose me. You attacked Konoha, which is why I sealed you in. None of her responses made sense, and Naruto's mind was racing. Naturally, how else could I have persuaded your stupid father to lock me into my pawn of choice? The fourth was my father? The elderly man said. You were left an orphan. Your father, the legendary fourth, is unknown, and your beloved mother, Kushina, passed away during childbirth. Why ought I to trust you? How could you tell? Standing elegantly atop the pile of blood grass, she began to approach him, the grass spreading out in front of her like a carpet. I know everything about you, Naruto. Your desire to protect what you love, your will to become stronger, even your fear of losing what you have gained, like what happened to Kairi. A thin line of blood ran down her immaculate, pale skin as Yamato stopped inches from her neck, but there was no cut because it had healed almost immediately. Shut up. Why shouldn't I kill you, please? Unfazed, she pushed Yamato away and leaned close to his ear, caressing the side of his face and bending down to look into his eyes and give him a full view of his cleavage. She whispered in his ear, because I could help you, because I could make you a full-blooded devil, stronger than the legendary Dark Knight Sparta himself. She kissed him tenderly before becoming more fervent and hungry. All you have to do is devote yourself to me as I will to you. She moaned into the kiss as his hands caressed her body and their tongues fought, and she pulled away, licking her lips. Enjoying his taste, Naruto's eyes glowed red like hers as he drew her closer, instinctively telling him to mark her as his. All right? She inquired. No, Naruto said, his eyes no longer glowing red, and to his surprise, she laughed before leaving with a sway in her hips and sitting on the bloodgrass. All right, for a second I thought you were weak. I'll see you soon, my vassal, but for now you have to show her where Shukaku's container is. Shukaku is foolish and conceited for challenging me, and I won't lose. Which side are you on, exactly? Only my own Naruto-kun has my support in this game. You are just one of many pieces, my vassal, don't let me down. Naruto jolted out of his sleep, almost leaping from his bed, and exclaimed, she thinks this is a game? Without even grabbing his cloak, he grabbed Yamato and froze when another thought struck him. The fourth is my father. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why me? No, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. I can't blame them for not being here for me, but that doesn't mean I can't be angry at them for not telling me. Anger swiftly replaced the sorrow and bewilderment, and as he left, he almost ran into Trish and Lady. Trish cheerfully said, I have ramen for you, young master. Her joy was short-lived, though, as she noticed the red leaking from Naruto's eyes. The boy said as he left, it can wait. Trish quickly followed after putting away the ramen, and Lady ran beside her, her eyes bewildered. What's going on? It must be crucial to overlook ramen. The brief response from Trish was, someone challenges master. After Temari and Kankuro found Gaara standing quietly in the middle of an empty training ground, they didn't have to wait long for Naruto, Trish, and Lady to appear in front of her. He was standing with Yamato at his waist, his coat missing, and his devil bringer bare. The two women nodded and leapt away when he said, make sure they don't interfere, over his shoulder. A leaf fluttered to the ground between Naruto and Gaara, but neither of them moved or spoke. This was a battle of dominance, and there was no more time for conversation. Naruto's ethereal devil bringer blasted out as soon as the leaf touched the ground, bringing them closer in a matter of seconds, but he was stopped and knocked off course by a wall of sand. Naruto leapt high to avoid the stream of sand that almost swallowed him. The sand shielding Gaara was smashed by a blue shockwave from his sword, and more streams of sand sprayed out at the airborne Naruto, who blurred out and vanished entirely. With red lightning already crackling around her, Lady said, this is not your battle. Trish and Kankuro blocked Temari and Kankuro's attempts to assist. They tensed to attack, but Lady stopped them when Temari reached for her fan, diverting the two women long enough for Kankuro to switch himself with his puppet. Don't even try it, she said. The puppet boy was seen switching himself. Trish will fry you if you move an inch further, and my spear isn't merely for show. The only thing the two siblings could do was observe. He's fast, Gaara exclaimed, searching wildly for him, but as soon as he appeared, he vanished again. A hair's breadth of a blade was about to stab her between the eyes, but the sand prevented it. I am directly before you. Enjoy it. He blurred once more and started to circle the red head after images appeared all around her, giving the impression that 20 of him were circling her at once. I call it air trick. Imagine it as a more offensively oriented Kawarimi. From her left, a second crescent arc of blue energy emerged, which the sand moved to block. But Naruto was getting tired quickly. His body was not responding to his commands. His attacks were becoming sluggish and forced, and he had to finish this. Naruto attacked from the opposite side, trying to take her head off, but the sand stopped his blade again, and he struggled to break through, but more sand pushed him back. He blurred out before the sand could capture him. Gaara thought frantically, he's everywhere. The sand was having trouble keeping up with him, and he was going to breach her defense if she didn't take action. As she chased Naruto around the field, stream after stream of sand shot out at him. She managed to dodge each one, but he was still forced into the air. I got you. She let out a triumphant cry. The boy struggled to free himself, but it was too late. The sand completely covered him, turning him into a cocoon in the air. The sand had missed him but swirled around him to trap him in a cage. All of the sand converged on him and he couldn't escape without getting caught. Q Sabaku. The girl yelled, damn it, my training has made me too weak. I won't lose. Gaara was infused with demonic energy, which caused her eyes to resemble Shukaku's, Sabaku Soso. IFRIT. A figure fell to the ground, hidden by a smokescreen, and the cocoon of sand exploded outward, sending flames, smoke, sand, and glass shards everywhere before it could implode. No one has ever escaped, so that's impossible. Gaara watched in horror as the monster came to light. AN. Cookie to who can tell me which game series one got this from. Double chocolate chip if you specify which game. Monstrous hooves emerged from the smoke with a dark blue-skinned beast in burnt shorts, its skin resembling a full-body version of the Devil Bringer, and it was at least 7 feet tall with blue flames burning on its body. Every inch of the creature was made of muscle, with long spiky silver hair that fell to the middle of its back, and Cookie to who can tell me which game series one got this from. That thing. What is it? What became of the child? The three of them turned to Trish as Konkuro asked in horror. That thing was scarier than Gaara. With her gaze fixed on the fight, Trish uttered, "That is Master's Ifrit form." "I've never seen a jutsu like that. It looks like a demon," Tamari yelled. "Not a demon. A devil." Lady turned back to watch the flaming beast regain its sense of direction. Snorting out a huge cloud of smoke, the beast took a deep breath and, when it breathed again, tiny bursts of flame jumped out of its nostrils. Instead of smoke, it then looked up into the sky and let out a guttural roar, with flames exploding from its mouth. "What is he?" Gaara watched in wonder and fear. The creature's flaming red eyes met Gaara's, and it began a slow stomp toward the girl that quickly escalated into a full-fledged rush. Roaring as the speed of its charge and the flames on its body increased, the creature's darkened whisker marks added to its menacing appearance. For the first time in her life, Gaara screamed in terror and concentrated all of her sand into creating a dome around herself. The creature even frightened her mother. A clawed hand covered in flames reared back and pierced through the orb, and a muffled scream was heard as the flaming creature struck the sand orb, but it didn't slow down and kept pushing the sand barrier into a tree that splintered from the impact. The creature flexed its claws, ready to kill her, but stopped when tears began to fall from the girl's eyes. Gaara, who was otherwise unharmed, squeezed her eyes shut and waited for her death as the sand lost its shape and trickled to the ground, leaving her suspended by the clawed hand around her neck. "What am I doing?" started to cross Naruto's mind. "Are you not going to murder her? Her life is now yours. She challenged you and lost," Kyuubi's composed voice echoed in his mind. "But why? I don't want to kill." As Naruto struggled to control his body, images of Haku raced through his head. "Why struggle with it? Kill her," she said sharply. "No, Ifrit, pay attention to me, I'm in charge." "Kill her? No, Ifrit, pay attention to me." "Kill her," cried Kyuubi. "No." Gaara was dropped, and Naruto's demonic form retreated. It roared monstrously as it was consumed by fire. The howl grew more human as the roar subsided. When the flames subsided, Naruto's human form became visible. "I am in command." Naruto, who was now human, approached the terrified girl and gazed at her with kind blue eyes. His lips met hers after his thumb brushed away a tear and the sand strangled him. She was still stunned by the kiss and was unaware of it. When he withdrew, she felt a sharp pain in her neck. They both sensed the pull on their brains. Now Naruto found himself in a huge desert. Sand buffed him while the wind howled. A scream of anger followed a distant rumble. Not here, anywhere but here. I'm sorry mother, don't hurt us." NYU. When he turned to look behind him, he saw two identical girls embracing in each other's arms. They both sobbed when he heard another scream of indignation. Closer this time, he turned around. In front of them, a gigantic tanuki emerged from the sand. The cries of NYU and Gaara grew louder again. Shukaku roared. The monster raised its arms and slammed them down, saying, "I won't lose to you. I won't." In order to deflect the blow, Naruto raised his devil bringer. From behind him, 9 tails halted the assault, struggling to overwhelm the tails. The clawed arms slammed into them. It was ineffective. The tanuki was thrown back with ease and the tails flexed. In all her splendor, the Kyuubi emerged from behind Naruto and said, "You are such a sore loser, Shukaku. You cheated, Kyuubi." Shukaku's stomach grew before he unleashed a powerful wind and chakra blast. Kyuubi looked at her nails and used a delicate hand to bat away the blast idly, saying, "I won fairly. You are merely too stupid to accept that." The tanuki's mouth erupted in a blast that was even bigger than the previous one. The wind turned back and her eyes flashed red as she said, "I grow weary of your immaturity." It whirled around Shukaku and kicked up sand as it shot back at him high above the demon. The sand continued to spin. When it got to the top, it solidified, enclosing Shukaku. The tanuki's forehead then displayed the seal kanji. He was right there, but his cries of anger faded and then vanished completely. She kissed him with her red lips and said, "That should keep him in check. You did well, Naruto-kun." He withdrew rapidly. "Why are you playing with our lives? You nearly killed her." She appeared contemplative as she considered his response. She whispered, "But you didn't, did you, Naruto-kun?" as she stroked his cheek. "What?" He slapped the hand away angrily and gestured to Gaara and NYU, who were still in shock, saying, "Yes, you almost killed her, but you didn't. You were strong enough to stay in control. I am glad I chose you for this game." Look at them. This isn't a game. They're like that because of that damn raccoon toying with their lives. Kyuubi regarded him as though he were an uncommon creature. "Why do you care? Why shouldn't I? Pain, death, terror, there is never a reason to cause it. Nothing justifies it." But you want power, don't you? You caused her terror and pain when you struggled to control Ifrit, and you are going to cause more pain, more terror, even death if you choose to continue on the path to power, whether intentional or not. Don't you want the power to crush the ones who oppose you? Before she smiled, she stared at him for a long moment. No, I want power to protect the ones I love, she said. Good, your heart is, by far, your greatest source of power. As you walk your path, she started to fade away. She vanished entirely, and Naruto found himself back in the training area. He who fights monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster, and when you gaze long into the abyss gazes into you. Remember my words, Naruto-kun? Gaara rushed to Kyuubi and gave him a hug before he could challenge what he had just said. She started crying in Naruto's arms. Shocking, Tamari and Kankuro mother was silent, and the voice was gone, along with tears of anguish, sadness, and most importantly, joy. She sobbed into Naruto's neck while he just sat down and held her. Yamato clattered to the ground beside him as his Ifrit gauntlets glowed and were replaced. Lady and Trish loosened their positions and approached Naruto after devil triggering. He'll probably need assistance getting home. After witnessing Gaara's tears, Kankuro turned to face his sister. He said, so any idea what happened? It would be best if we avoided him during the Chunin exams, and Kankuro easily understood the subliminal message. All I know is that guy is extremely dangerous to beat Gaara. Fighting this guy was suicide at the time of the invasion. That and Gaara and NYU like him. Hopefully, for their sake, she won't have to fight him. 3 people were in a room when a man burst in. HESSS sealed her demon. I don't know how, but I'm sure of it. What are we going to do now? We need her for the invasion. The eldest man raised his voice. Calm yourself. The invasion will still happen. She just may need a little motivation to release Shukaku. After all, I need the Sharingan and the boy's devil blood. I won't let this little setback stop me. The older man said, and his sword, Yamato, is our only hope with Force Edge gone. Yes, you will get your sword as long as I get the boy to experiment on, maybe with the help of one of your followers to compare notes. Naruto returned home to find those 2 bowls of ramen bearing his name while the 4 men reviewed their final preparations for the Chunin exams. What do you mean the ramen is gone? Naruto, watch out. With his devil bringer, the silver-haired boy turned just in time to capture a tiny seed-like creature that was flying before ruthlessly crushing the life out of it. The creature fought in his grasp. Naruto yelled, fucking chimera seeds. As he sliced through another that leapt to try to grab hold of him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw what appeared to be a lizard. An attack. It had a strong tail, sharp talons and teeth, and armored green skin. It was roughly half the size of a man. A downed Sakura was attacked by the creature, which tried to rip out her throat. Sasuke was too preoccupied defending himself against his own assault to assist her. With his devil bringer aimed directly at the creature's face, Naruto appeared in front of the girl using his newly acquired air trick move. The assault was able to lift the shield-like projection on its arm to absorb the blow, but Naruto's demonic arm broke the thick bone shield beneath it, knocking it back. Grabbing the lizard's tail, Naruto's ethereal devil bringer relentlessly slammed it into the ground with incredible strength. The half-devil was using their brother as a club to beat back the assaults that were rapidly emerging from the ground and joining the fight. Sakura emerged from behind Naruto and used one of the assaults to slam her gloved fists. Its neck snapped and its head fell in, colliding with another directly behind it. Sakura then leapt into the air, dodging Naruto's broken assault. They were all thrown into a tree when it collided with its brothers. Then they were quickly destroyed by Sasuke's fireball, leaving only charred husks in their wake. With the thumb pointing straight up and 2 fingers protruding from a closed fist, Naruto pointed toward the dead creatures with his human hand. Bang! Yippee-ki-ya, motherfuckers. Desperate to get the brain juice off her glove, Sakura said, what's that hand sign, Naruto? I've never seen it before. Naruto simply gave a shrug. Don't know, just sorta felt right, kinda a spur of the moment thing. Hey Sasuke, if you're done barbecuing, we should go. The smell alone is gonna attract attention. Sasuke nodded after completing his jutsu in case there were enemies nearby. The 3 quickly fled to the trees. Naruto paused to gather his thoughts. Passing the test to weed out the idiot genin who couldn't see past a simple illusion had been an easy enough start to the exam. However, Naruto had to prevent Sasuke from creating a commotion. It didn't follow that Naruto couldn't use genjutsu just because he didn't. He had, after all, perfected the henge to the point where it was almost real, and the Mikadzuki no Mai needed a fairly good command of genjutsu techniques to trick the opponent. Naruto enjoyed questioning Sasuke about his defeat at the hands of that Lee child. Even with the Sharingan, the Uchiha was unable to hold his own against the green spandex-wearing genin, but the other genin's superior strength, speed, and experience quickly caused his defenses to crumble. Despite his somewhat peculiar attire, Lee was respected by Team 7. They joined the other 9 rookies when they located the classroom. Naruto believed the mud was about to attack him at that moment because Kiba would not stop glaring at him. Naruto unwrapped his devil bringer in front of the ninja wannabes as they began to stare at him, seemingly daring them to do something. Even the rookie 9 were taken aback by the demonic appearance of his glowing right arm, and the sight of his devil bringer scared most people away. One of those Kabuto guys appeared. Naruto was aware that the man was strange. My ass has failed 7 times. How did he obtain information about me in the first place? Although it was vague, his nin info card claimed to have advanced swordsmanship and ninjutsu skills in addition to a rare, allegedly extinct bloodline around him. He could almost feel the rookie 9's curious stares. As I beat his face into the floor, I'll have to update his information on me later. The paper test followed, where they were unable to be caught cheating. Perhaps that Ibiki guy was intimidating to some other genin because of the way he acted. Naruto sneered. I've seen more terrifying things in the restrooms at the academy. When he failed to write down any answers, Hinata, who was seated directly next to him during the test, became a little concerned. Naruto performed a henge and cage bunshin combo to calm her down. Even though he had no idea why he cared, without any smoke to alert him, they emerged as flies. He dispatched them to collect responses, and his paper was completed quickly. Why she blushes so much around me is still a mystery to me. Isn't that not my arm? Before it could continue, he put an end to that line of thought. They found there was no final question after a group of children wussed out of the dreaded finally question. Additionally, Anko, the new productor, burst through the windows to introduce herself as Ibiki attempted to congratulate them. Naruto enjoyed dispelling the fear she attempted to instill in the other genin because she was attractive. Rewind. There was a good deal of genin in front of the shadowy forest that towered over them. Inside, they could hear the faint screams of demons and laughter from the shadows. Dozens of bright yellow eyes observed them before vanishing once more into the foliage. Listen up, maggots, this is the forest of death. It's full of wild animals, poisonous plants, and demons. It's also where you'll be taking the second exam, so try not to die, Anko yelled with a wicked grin. Naruto gave a snort. Oh, the forest of death. I'm so scared. Look. Trees. Every genin in his immediate vicinity had snickered and giggled, trying to hide their laughter. In his devil bringer, Naruto instinctively caught and crushed a kunai all around him. Silence fell. Anko put her arms around his neck and leaned in behind him. Her nipples pushed through the form-fitting armor and fishnet shirt beneath her coat, and her huge breasts pressed against his back. The woman's tongue slithered out and licked his cheek for a long time before her lips found his. Taking a step back, she said, "You got balls, kid." A second kunai pressed lightly against his crouched position. Her face showed shock as she felt powerful arms encircle her waist and watched the Naruto in front of her rise in a cloud of smoke. Get cocky with me again and I might have to cut those balls off. As the boy's hands moved over her body, Anko had to suppress a groan. You're not too bad yourself, babe, but you shouldn't underestimate me, Naruto grinned. He slapped her lightly on the ass after Anko stepped out of his grasp. A slight flush came over her cheeks. You're not the slut you pretend to be, huh? Everyone had the same thought and stared at him as if he were insane. Is he hoping to die? Final flashback when Naruto became aware of something, or the absence of something. His thoughts came to a sudden stop. There were no noises. There was an uncanny silence. He heard neither demons nor animals. He was immediately on high alert, and the hair on the back of his neck stood on end. His cheek was cut by something that flew by and drew blood. He yelled, "Move!" A roaring wind ripped through the trees as he reached out, grabbed Sakura and Sasuke, and tossed them aside. Sakura and Sasuke collapsed to the ground, powerless to stop Naruto from vanishing into the forest after being struck squarely by the wind. Naruto, as the man in disguise asked, was that really necessary, Orochimaru? Relax, Credo. I had to separate them. I want to test the Uchiha, and if the half-breed makes it pasted my special summon, then I will test him too. Would you require assistance by any chance, Orochimaru-san? No Anyus, I will test them myself. After crashing through trees and branches, Naruto eventually skidded to a halt in the center of a clearing. Fortunately, Yamato wasn't lost during his journey, so he got up and got himself together. Damn it. My coat's totaled. Trish bought this for me too. Yes, Naruto is upset that his coat is now in ruins after being blown through several trees, which would have killed a regular ninja. He cursed once more as he removed the now ripped rags and tossed them aside. That was my favorite coat. Whoever did that wind jutsu is dead. He saw the enormous snake-like plant-like creature. When he looked up, it released seeds at him as it sailed languidly through the air. I'm really not in the mood for this. Naruto calmly defended his position. As the seeds approached, he grabbed them out of the air and started juggling them. When they eventually got to him, he kicked the seeds back into the forest one by one, with the exception of the final one, which he tossed carelessly on his finger. The flower woman was inside the snake-like creature when it stopped in midair and opened its mouth wide. Her eyes widened as the bizarre scene unfolded in front of her. In the meantime, all of the seeds that had been bouncing off of trees that didn't seem to be related came together, bounced off one another, and then went straight to a nearby tree that was aimed at the plant woman. One by one, they all flew into her face. She spoke the first thing that sprang to mind after emerging from her daze: "Who the hell are?" After throwing the final seed into the air, Naruto interrupted her tirade by striking her unprepared face with a sheathed Yamato. The crunch that reverberated through the clearing made him wince a little. Naruto gave the plant woman a derisive bow, and it's a grand slam. "The crowd goes wild," he said. Thank you, I'll be here till I manage to get another scroll. Don't forget to tip your waitress." "Who do you think you are? You dare make a mockery of me? I am Echidna, the she-viper and new queen of this forest." "Oh yay? Well, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, resident demon killer and badass. I do believe I outrank you. In fact, I own you in this forest." She inhaled Naruto's scent and said, "That scent is the same Uzumaki Naruto, the descendant of Sparta. My prisoner, Dante, is the same person whose blood flows through your veins." "Yes, I have indeed heard the same blood as Dante, Sparta, and a man named Virgil G's. How can I obtain my own representative? I also kick demon ass." With a cunning expression in her eyes, the plant woman remarked, "Your blood would make a powerful seed. She could break the bonds Dante used to bind her to the snake contract if she were to absorb his power." Ignoring her twitching, irritated eye, he went on, "Look, if you're asking for a date, then I'm gonna have to turn you down." A certain Akatsuki member sneezed quite violently and said, "I'm sure you'd make some plant guy really happy, but you're not really my type. One, have nothing against the petal look. It looks good on you, and I'm just as fond of boobs as the next guy with all those girls vying for his attention. You would think that the next guy besides Sasuke would have brought his clan back to life by now." The woman hissed, "Your jesting is getting more and more annoying, half-breed." "It's not you, it's me," Naruto said, continuing to ignore the expanding tick marks on her forehead. "On second thought, it's you. However, I prefer women who have a lower half, nice ass and toned legs. You know, in addition, while we're talking about it, how in the world would you win over a guy? Oh, well, whatever, your large mouth is probably useful for something." "Enough. You arrogant little half-breed, I'll eat you." As she transformed into a snake and flew towards Naruto with her mouth wide open, determined to devour him, the petals closed around her. "Sorry, I told you I'm not interested," Naruto said, grinning foxy as he stood there. Ifrit. In an attempt to knock him off, she took a meandering path through the dense forest, swerving to avoid trees and snapping any branches that got in her way. Yamato was absorbed into his devil bringer to be replaced by his Ifrit gauntlets. As Echidna attacked, Naruto leapt to the side while grabbing onto her scaly hide with his devil bringer. He launched himself into a run along her tail, jumping, ducking, and weaving out of danger as he stood on the end of her tail, easily avoiding the branches that would have knocked him off. Echidna felt his approach and leapt straight into the air, whipping her tail viciously as she ascended further. Despite using the tree climbing exercise, Naruto was still knocked off balance and narrowly avoided being skewered by the spiked spines on the end of her tail. "Fuck, I forgot I can't use jutsu with Ifrit active." Naruto tried to use Cage Bunshin, but nothing happened. "Shit, I'm kinda high up." Ifrit changed Naruto's fighting style significantly because, unlike Yamato, who was able to use jutsu while active, Ifrit only permitted fire-enhanced taijutsu and took away all the moves he had created with Yamato. Naruto discovered that, despite Ifrit's ability to increase his physical power and speed to new levels, it still had weaknesses and flaws. This better work. Naruto charged his devil bringer with chakra, and Ifrit's blazing blue flames caused the larger, ethereal form of his devil bringer to come to life as a huge clawed hand. The half-devil threw his arm back and punched the ground beneath him with a shout. As the ground rushed up to meet him, the ground cracked beneath him, halting his descent, and Naruto landed on his feet in the flaming crater. The she-viper circled languidly above him, and when he looked up, the snake's head opened wide again, revealing the woman inside. "Huh? Your pitiful gloves are of no use to you." A huge ball of fire sped toward her, missing, but coming so close that it burned the side of her face. Pointing his still smoking arm in her direction, Naruto stood in the crater and said, "What? How could I have missed your enormous mouth? What a massive target." After letting out a shriek of rage, Echidna's entire body glowed brightly, and she started to circle above Naruto without even bothering to transform into her serpentine form. My kids, come to me. The Chimera seed's roots wrapped around the demons and dug past their skin, and the seeds sprouted flowers. Demonstrating that they had become one with their hosts, she released hundreds of seeds as assaults and scarecrows emerged from the surrounding forest. The seeds hatched and leapt onto the closest creature. Fuick, Naruto said. Surveying his surroundings, the now enhanced assaults and scarecrows circled him, covering every square inch of the ground, their eyes waiting and fixed on him. Assault, who was more agitated, lunged while the assault screamed in agony. Naruto stomped on its tail and dodged, and his ethereal devil bringer hand wrapped around its neck, tearing it from the body, while his other hand ejected a ball of blue flames that burned a group to his left to a crisp. Next up, with the fresh corpse still bleeding beneath his boot and the head still with its spine attached, he asked. After a brief period of retreat, the creatures realized how many they were and rushed towards Naruto. Ifrit struck out violently, leaving a trail of flames behind it. One gauntlet slammed down on an assault's head, flattening it into the ground, while the other speared into a scarecrow's chest and shot out of its back. Naruto used momentum to throw a flaming haymaker that crashed into several demons after spinning to knock the scarecrow away. He grabbed the creature's tail with his ethereal devil bringer and tore in from his back as an assault leapt on his back, driving its talons deep and biting into his shoulder. The deep cuts on his back healed as soon as the tail was removed. To avoid being overpowered, he smashed the assault into the demons surrounding him, crushing the advancing ones. As he struggled, his heart raced and blood throbbed in his ears. Massive scythes would nick him, teeth and claws would dig into him, and thorny vines tore the skin from his body wherever they struck. Naruto's movements slowed, and it took more blows to defeat the nearby demons. He had cuts that were leaking blood, and his healing factor was gradually failing him. The demons became frenzied when they realized the kill was imminent. In an attempt to reach the silver-haired demon hunter, they killed and trampled their own. Echidna watched as the descendant of Sparta was attacked by wave after wave. Despite killing hundreds, he didn't even make a dent in their numbers. 4 or 5 would emerge from the surrounding forest for each person he killed. His fists, or the flames that followed them, were flinging creatures back in their dozens, only to be crushed and killed by the other demons who were hunting when the horde finally engulfed him, the flames extinguishing beneath the dome of demon numbers. She smiled sickeningly. Sasuke let his stomach drop to the floor. Sakura was not doing any better from his point of view. Her unfocused eyes were filled with tears, and she had become a shaky mess. The mystery woman said, "How disappointing, I expected more. Her desire to kill is unbelievable. She isn't genin level at all." In slow motion, Sasuke witnessed her reach for kunai. "Get moving." His legs remained unresponsive. "Get moving." He vaguely recalled Kakashi's lessons in his frantic state. Killing intent can be thrown off in a variety of ways. There is experience, willpower, anger, even pain. From the woman's hand, 2 kunai shot toward their heads. That's it. With his trembling hands, he was able to retrieve a kunai from his pouch as his Sharingan flared. The targets vanished into the trees as the woman's kunai pierced one. Maybe this won't be so dull after all, Orochimaru, in disguise, laughed to himself. Sasuke swiftly applied extra bandages to the wound after removing the kunai from his leg. He then turns his attention to Sakura's still shaking body beside him. He lightly patted her cheek a couple of times. Her eyes widened, then concentrated on him. "Sakura, Sakura, snap out of it," she exclaimed. "Sass." He put one hand over her mouth and the other over his lips, covering them with his finger. He let her go after she nodded in agreement to slow their pounding hearts. They both inhaled deeply. "SSA," Sakura whispered. "Do you hear that?" to Sasuke. Sasuke's gaze expanded just in time to avoid the enormous snake that snapped its mouth shut where they had been. He seized Sakura and leapt off the branch. Sasuke released Sakura as soon as they touched down, and she flew through hand seals, Gukaku no Jutsu. As the fireball consumed the snake, it let out a screech in an attempt to extinguish the fire. It writhed in agony, but to no avail. Before it fell and went limp, its body still smoking, it gave one last hiss. When the creature died, both genin sighed with relief. "We need to regroup with Naruto. We'll need his help to fight off that woman. She can't be a genin," Sasuke replied. The sound of skin cracking stopped the two as they turned to leave. They shuddered when they heard the voice that followed. "Tisk, tisk. Tisk Prey should never let down their guard, and your teammate should joining us shortly, that is, if he is still alive." Sakura and Sasuke turned to see the unidentified woman emerge from the scorched remains of the snake. Sakura slowly moved into a loose stance as Sasuke took a deep, soothing breath. The woman appeared astonished. "Aren't you going to run?" The calm response from Sasuke was, "You'd only catch us." She chuckled. "So the prey has been backed into a corner and decided to make their last stand." Who said it's our last stand? We're just going to show you we're not worth the trouble, Sakura replied. Sakura followed Sasuke as he charged, his Sharingan exploding with two tomo in each eye spinning wildly. Sakura, follow my lead, he exclaimed. The only sound that met Echidna's ears was her children's excited chatter as they competed for food. She turned away, allowing her devil trigger's glow to fade. Her face was dominated by fear as she turned around. He can't possibly be that strong. Blue flames burst from the dome of demons that encased Naruto. The unfortunate demons were writhing on the ground with bubbling blisters all over their bodies, while the closest ones were instantly burned to ashes. In the fire crater stood the devil that was Naruto's Ifrit form. Compared to its previous use, controlled Naruto's Ifrit devil trigger appeared more powerful. It appeared bigger, and the blue flames that covered his body were more intense. Flames erupted around him as the fire devil pounded his chest with a roar that reached the sky. Naruto let out a stream of flames from his mouth. The devil's intense heat caused the surrounding demons to flee in terror. Echidna's devil trigger glow returned with a scream. She transformed into a snake and lunged towards the fire devil. Echidna's charge was met head-on by Naruto. The fire demon twisted out of the way and delivered a strong punch that broke the plant devil's jaw as her serpentine head attempted to chomp down on him. As she snapped her jaw back into position to heal, Echidna quickly recovered and wrapped her tail around Naruto. As the viper attempted to drain Naruto of his life, he struggled and broke free, his being consumed by fire. Echidna screamed in agony as she swung her flaming tail at Naruto. He managed to catch the tail, narrowly avoiding the barbs at the end. A normal human, ninja or not, would have been flattened by the force behind the tail, but Naruto's devil trigger form remained unaffected by the impact. Naruto sank his clawed hands into Echidna's scaly hide and dug his hoof feet into the ground. The beast used all of his strength to pull hard and spin, hitting all of the demons that hadn't yet fled with her. He allowed her to fly into a fairly sturdy tree. After keeping it up for a few rotations, the glow of Echidna's devil trigger vanished as her body sank to the ground. I will have your blood. I will be released from my servitude, she screamed as she jerked her charred and battered body back up against him. Naruto waited while digging his hoofs into the ground with all her strength. She slammed into him. Deep trenches were left behind as the fire devil was pushed back, his hooves sinking into the earth. He remained motionless, using his clawed hands to hold her jaws open. Snapping her jaws open to extricate her human-like form, Naruto slammed her to the ground. Echidna finished during battle. She had sustained her devil trigger and called out her minions. Using up all of her power, her slender arms were seized by two enormous hands. Her half-lidded eyes gazed up at Naruto's Ifrit form. The fire devil's flaming red eyes and the blue flames forming in his mouth were the last things she saw. Her head was severed when Naruto shot a focused stream of blue fire directly into her face. After going limp, the enormous body rose in a cloud of smoke. Naruto pounded his chest and roared in triumph. The devil reverted to his human form after his body burned down. Naruto collapsed to his hands and knees, gasping for air. Yamato and Ifrit clattered on the ground beside him as his devil bringer absorbed them. Naruto uttered the words, "I own you and this forest bitch." He sighed and moaned in frustration as he looked down. Naruto's black pants turned into charred shorts, and he said, "First my coat, now my pants. Someone is defiantly gonna pay." Dante, how strong is he to imprison Echidna and seal burial? What else did he do? With a sigh, Naruto stood up. Anyway, I'm sick of cleaning up for him. He needs to do it himself. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something. No, it isn't possible. Mother? She leapt off as soon as he saw her. Naruto ran after her, forgetting the pain and fatigue. Naruto scanned the area for the woman who bore a striking resemblance to Kairi. Though he had been pursuing her, it appeared that he had lost sight of her. The fight with Echidna had cost them dearly. His almost instantaneous healing had slowed to human levels, and he was covered in cuts and bruises. His charred shorts, leaf headband, and Yamato were all that remained of him after being blasted through the forest and his battle. He paused to try to get air into his lungs while leaning against a tree. You should not chase so desperately after a memory. Has the mere glimpse of her taken away your sense? Illusion, weakness, trap. Is it not obvious, young one? As my vassal you should know better? The Kyuubi kept reprimanding him, but he just ignored her. Naruto was not surprised by her voice. Ever since the battle with Echidna, her faint whispers had grown louder. He looked around. All around him again nothing. Just wait. His eyes grew wide as memories came flooding back. He imagined them to be frightfully real. The child with the blonde hair asked, "Will you love me?" The woman gave him a hug and said, "I will love you like my own." The boy with the silver hair sobbed as he held his dying mother. Demons don't sniff, cry. Devils sniff. Don't cry. I won't sniff, cry. Images and feelings flooded his mind, and he held his head in agony. Kyuubi, stop it. He let out a growl. Young one, do you not want to see this? Isn't this the reason you pursue an image so assiduously? Naruto could sense Kyuubi's presence all around him as the images kept coming, and her voice was filled with curiosity and bewilderment as she continued to assault his mind. Cease! Naruto lashed out in his mind as his eyes flashed red. When he saw Kyuubi's feminine form lying in a heap in front of him, the red glow returned to his eyes, and he realized that he was in the sewers that had become his mindscape. When I tell you to quit, you halt. At the end, his tone changed and grew more sinister. As the collar that symbolized her sealed state tightened around her neck, Kyuubi wondered if she had pushed too hard. Despite the darkness creeping into her vision, she did not gag, whimper, or plead for mercy. Then it stopped. Naruto regained his composure, and she gasped for air. The agonized scream that pierced his mental landscape interrupted his thoughts. That sounded like the Teme. He glanced briefly at Kyuubi before he disappeared into the sewers. With her tails circling her flawless form, Kyuubi calmly sat down. His power grows so quickly, but the weakness he displays is concerning. Kyuubi said his affection for Kairi, his penchant for women, and his determination to defend those he cares about, even if it means losing his life. How can I overcome these shortcomings? Choices. There were smashed and burned trees all over the place, and the damage appeared to be far more than any normal genin could have done. This was evidence of the chakra-enhanced strength Sakura was gaining and the potent fire jutsus Sasuke possessed, but none of that had been sufficient to thwart their enigmatic assailant. Sasuke-kun, is there nothing you can do? Or is it that you are too afraid for your teammate's life to risk moving? She asked sarcastically. Sasuke could only watch as the woman, whoever she was, stood there yanking viciously on Sakura's hair. Come on, Sakura, you need to move for it to work. Sasuke's dark eyes begged her to get out by peering into her green eyes. The woman lost her balance as Sakura slipped out of her grasp after she abruptly reached into her weapon pouch and retrieved a kunai, swinging it behind her head without hesitation and effortlessly slicing through her hair. Focusing chakra and carefully navigating through the required hand seals, Sasuke unleashed his technique, causing his Sharingan to spin to life as he took his opening. The woman was bound to a tree by the hidden wire he had planted during the skirmish. Jutsu no Ryuka. Sasuke felt the familiar sensation of chakra exhaustion creep into his body as he poured all of his chakra into the attack, unleashing a dragon-shaped flamethrower to fly along the ninja wire. The woman screamed as the attack engulfed her, and then everything fell silent as the flames subsided. Suddenly he felt a tremendous pressure. I can't move. His efforts were in vain because the paralysis technique was too powerful to be broken, even if he hadn't been depleted of chakra. You two are far superior to what I had anticipated. I think you'll do quite nicely, the woman said, her voice gradually growing deeper. Yes, I've decided you're worthy after all. Sasuke felt pain surge through his senses as a sharp pain struck his neck. He could hear himself shrieking in agony as everything went dark. Orochimaru laughed, then felt a fist slam into his cheek and saw a flash of pink. Only the lip was broken. There was no blood or bruises. After a moment of shock, Sakura's determination took over. A barrage of chakra-enhanced blows struck Orochimaru. She pushed him back with punch after punch, giving the attack her all. She roared back, delivering the decisive blow as it flew in the direction of the snake summoner. Her entire arm glowed with chakra. Only to be caught with ease. Sakura was horrified to see the man emerge from the broken tree. He was unharmed except for a few scratches. When he broke her wrist and dropped her to the ground, Sakura regurgitated a scream. Interesting, for one to have such mastery of their chakra is rare. Very rare indeed. Maybe I should mark you as well. I will eventually need a female to sire more Sharingan wielders. A snake slithered out of his mouth and produced a sword. Or maybe I should just kill you here to prevent another Tsunade. The chance of you surviving the cursed mark is slim anyway. You should feel honored, little girl. Not many are worthy enough to die by this blade. Unwilling to give up, Sakura's other arm suddenly lashed out. Orochimaru smirked as he broke it after blocking it at an odd angle. It fell limp to her side. Her eyes were clouded by pain as she dropped to her knees in front of him. Kusanagi was raised by Orochimaru to kill her. She closed her eyes, but something warm and moist struck her face in place of the blade slicing through her flesh. Mud? She heard Naruto's voice after opening her eyes to see a familiar sword sticking out of the man's chest. Sakura's final words before succumbing to unconsciousness alongside Sasuke were, "Sorry I took so long, Sakura. I've been expecting you to show up, Naruto-kun. I was starting to worry Echidna may have been too much of a challenge for you." Naruto questioned, "Orochimaru of the Sannin, why did you attack us?" The man melted into a pool of mud and said, "Defeat me and I just might tell you." The words, "to your left," came from Kyuubi instinctively. Naruto swung to his left to avoid the blade that would have severed his head. He held off the sword with a trembling human hand. Orochimaru was seized by the ethereal devil bringer as it came to life. Naruto pinned him to the tree by swinging the snake summoner into it. "You'll tell me now," he yelled, tightening his hold. "Good. He's not attempting to target Sakura or Sasuke. It's a clone. The original is about 50 feet to your right." The clone raised its voice. "Why, Naruto-kun, don't you want to play? Though I am disappointed in you, you assume I'm the original?" The clone and tree were crushed when Naruto clenched his fist and his ethereal devil bringer did the same. "You assume I give a fuck?" Naruto said. Naruto turned and swung his sword with him before the tree had even had a chance to fall. Judgment cut. The startled Orochimaru was sliced in half at the waist by the shockwave that blasted toward him. Hundreds of snakes, however, flew from his split halves and reunited him in place of blood. Naruto did a good job of hiding his surprise. He moved into a ready stance. Gradually he placed Yamato beside his ear and eye, parallel to the tree beneath his feet, and extended his human arm behind him in front of him. His devil bringer was trained on Orochimaru. Orochimaru just chuckled. "You hide it well, but I can see the exhaustion in your eyes, Naruto-kun. You know I'm one of the Sannin. You could not defeat me even at your best." Naruto inhaled deeply and concentrated as he considered thousands of possible strategies before deciding on the best one. "I don't care if I'm outmatched, I'm not losing." "Are you planning something, Naruto-kun? Maybe a desperate attack to chase me off? How do you know it will work, or even if I am the original?" "He lies. He is the original and he has no more clones in preparation. Be cautious. You must strike quickly or he will escape." "You know, Naruto-kun, I'm always in need of a powerful fighter. With the skill you display, even while weakened you would be second to none but myself. What is your answer?" Naruto lowered Yamato and considered the offer. "My answer." "Yes, your answer?" His serpentine face lit up with a broad smile. "Go blow yourself." Judgment cut. Naruto phased out as soon as the blow left his blade. Air trick. Orochimaru tried to dodge, but he was trapped when two more appeared, one to each side and one right behind him. Far away, Naruto vanished from view as he leapt through trees while carrying Sakura and Sasuke. Jackpot. Orochimaru was struck by the 4 shockwaves. Naruto put his teammates to sleep after they had gone far enough. He hardly had enough chakra left to function normally. It was almost completely gone. He would definitely faint from any additional strain. And since Sakura and Sasuke were already unconscious, that was not an option. Naruto attempted to draw Yamato, but before he could respond, Kusanagi had already buried itself in his chest and pinned against the tree. Kukuku. Good but not good enough, Naruto-kun. Only enough of his devil blood's healing properties had returned to sustain him. There was some blood in his cough. Orochimaru appeared completely unharmed. His slightly torn clothes were the only sign of the assault. "That was such an exquisite performance, Naruto-kun. I would be very pleased if you joined my side." "He has nothing, young one. He is nothing." The words, "Damn, you seriously need a fucking hobby," were interrupted by Naruto. Orochimaru lost his composure. He paused, clearly calming himself, and said, "Why are you so loyal to Konoha? This village mistreated you, shunned you, and I bet some have even made attempts on your life. I, however, could give you what you want, knowledge." "He would only feed you lies. Power?" he asked. "He would only hinder your growth out of jealousy and fear. Or perhaps Kairi, your devoted mother," the man said, a dark gleam in his eye. "No one can raise the dead, Naruto-kun, no one." Orochimaru noticed the fleeting glimmer of hope in his eyes and said, "Naruto-kun, you miss her, don't you? Kairi, get out so he can see you." Aside from the black form-fitting dress, Kairi had not changed at all, and she was suddenly standing inches in front of him with a miserable expression on her face. "But how? I saw, you died in my arms." The sky darkened around them, and thunder roared in the distance, causing him to feel numb and his eyes to lose focus as memories flooded back. Orochimaru's words seemed very alluring. "I could give her back to you, Naruto-kun. All you have to do is pledge your loyalty to me." Pathetic. In a daze, Naruto questioned, "What? Your teammates die beside you and you would give them up for an empty shell of your memories?" "All right, will you accompany me, Naruto-kun?" The silence seemed to go on forever as he turned to face Sakura and Sasuke, who were both breathing heavily and would perish if he didn't help them. Naruto sighed deeply. Naruto spat blood in Orochimaru's face and said, "Never." Before anger completely covered his normally emotionless face, Orochimaru appeared stunned. "If you are not my ally, you are my enemy," he said. "Kill him, Kairi," he said as he turned to leave. Naruto looked up into the sky as it started to rain, soaking them all, and tears began to cloud his vision. Why? Kairi, whose eyes were now welling with tears, carefully removed Kusanagi from his chest and lifted it above her head as blood flew and thunder roared and lightning flashed all around them. She slid off the blade and collapsed, dissolving into a completely different person. I'm sorry, Mother. Naruto stood next to Kairi, Yamato holding in his devil bringer. Blood leaking from the sword protruding from her stomach. Orochimaru didn't appear at all surprised by the turn of events. A snake slithered over and returned the abandoned Kusanagi to its summoner's hand. What now, half-breed? He sneered. You are completely depleted, and even if you were, neither Yamato nor Ifrit would be able to harm me because I am aware of all of their abilities. Then use both, young one. It's taking everything I have to just stand, so even if I tried, I couldn't call out Ifrit. Amazing. I've seen you in every conflict, and you never gave up. You always managed to come out on top. I've run out of things. You just need to call for the power that is waiting for you. Bring out Yamato and Ifrit and use them together. It's time you grew up, young one, or do you want to give up and die like a weakling? Well, I guess I have nothing to lose if you put it that way, but why are you helping? Are you serious? I can't recall ever having this much fun. Forcing himself to stand, Naruto lifted Yamato and gestured to Orochimaru. The glow of his devil bringer seemed to intensify as it cinched around Yamato's hilt. A blue aura began to circle his form, and the air grew heavy. Orochimaru's eyes went wide with shock. He hurried Naruto, trying to cut him in two with an overhead slash, but was pushed back by a burst of flames. Well, you've proven too dangerous to let live. Rain smothered the flames, revealing the new Naruto. The young boy had vanished, replaced by a teenager who appeared to be at least 16 years old and had long silver hair that hung down to the middle of his back. He looked athletic because all of the baby fat had vanished and had been replaced by lean muscle. The charred shorts were also gone, and his trademark trench coat and black pants took their place. The teen's new weapon was the biggest surprise to Orochimaru. Yamato, the plain but graceful katana, had changed into a new blade with a long red handle and a guard with a lever on it. It resembled a huge, intricate knife more than a sword. Orochimaru's serpentine gold eyes met Naruto's blood-red fox eyes. The teen's devil bringer arm then started to creep up his shoulder and spread along his body as the blue aura grew stronger. Like it? I call her Red Queen, Yamato combined with Ifrit. With a few exceptions, Naruto's devil trigger form with Red Queen was essentially the same as Yamato's. Instead of the sheath at his side and the spirit hovering behind him, he had two big bat-like wings that grew out of his back and wrapped around his shoulders, out of the way but still accessible, giving him the appearance of a cloak or cape. He appeared menacing yet regal due to the slightly more detailed armor with red highlights. Naruto sent chakra through the handle of the blade by twisting it. The sword responded by making a sound that was a hybrid of a thunderclap and a roar, and then it caught fire. The rain that touched the blade hissed and quickly evaporated due to the extreme heat. You will not forget this devil's power. Orochimaru experienced a slight chill for the first time in years. X streak. Naruto spun on his heel with his flaming blade, transforming himself into a swirling vortex of fire in place of the typical streak in which he glided along the ground. Orochimaru flew through hand seals after dropping Kusanagi, Futon, Daitapa. The gust of wind struck Naruto as he attempted to push him away. As the flames enveloping Naruto waned, his spin slowed. Orochimaru let his face get a little smirky. The wind now only serves to fuel Naruto's flames as they suddenly flared up and his spin increased dramatically. Orochimaru screamed as the tornado of flames melted his body and Red Queen sliced him in two. The rain continued to fall, gradually extinguishing the flames. As Red Queen burned down, Yamato was left alone as Naruto's devil trigger retreated into his devil bringer. When he looked down, he saw that Kusanagi had vanished and that Orochimaru had escaped, leaving behind tiny fragments of melted rock. He turned back to his teammates and said, "Even if you are a Sannin, I will kill you for what you did to Kairi. I need to get them out of here." Naruto's agonized tears would be concealed by the rain as it continued into the night. Kyuubi sat peacefully on her bloodgrass patch, all according to plan now, for the other weaknesses. The three men turned to the newcomer and said, "Slam. Orochimaru-san, we were beginning to wonder what was holding you." Orochimaru was unharmed at all. "I ran into a few unexpected difficulties, but everything went smoothly. Santis-san, Sasuke is marked and should he survive he will find a gift awaiting him." In an optimistic tone, the elderly man inquired, "Did you get Yamato?" He held up a tiny tube filled with a red liquid and said, "No, I have something far more valuable." "I is TT that," Anyus murmured after himself. Orochimaru laughed and said, "Yes, Anyus, it's his blood, collected fresh from the blade of Kusanagi." Credo's face was unable to contain his surprise. The possibilities. At last, Naruto said, using a small medical jutsu to reset and repair Sakura's arms after they fully healed. They would be as good as new, but she wouldn't be able to use them for some time. Sasuke was a completely different story. The healing jutsu was totally rejected by his body. Naruto's only options were to try to lower his fever and bandage the worst of his wounds to avoid infection. The odd mark on his neck appeared to be connected to the rejection. You simply can't make it easy, can you? To stand watch, Naruto stumbled to the front of his temporary hiding place in the tree trunk. Whatever had happened threw him off balance a little against Orochimaru. He had been acting instinctively, but now that the drive was gone, the awkwardness of his growth spurt took over. The forest was silent now that the rain had stopped, save for the inane chatter of a passing demon. What took place? In a matter of seconds, I went from 13 to 16. You must be familiar with Kyuubi. Devil maturation. What on earth does that mean? Devils fight by nature, and in order to fight, they must mature more quickly than humans as a result. A demon will reach its prime between a week and a few years. They skip adolescence entirely and mature from childhood to adulthood, staying in their prime for years longer than humans to fight and mate. What about aging? Demons also lack an elder stage. A demon's lifespan is directly correlated with its level of power. Their bodies will eventually just give out if they are not killed in battle, but this rarely occurs because battle kills them more frequently. A class of demons is more prevalent when it is weaker. Despite being among the most prevalent demons, scarecrows and chimera seeds are pitiful. However, demons like Burial and Echidna are the only ones of their kind because they are much stronger. Alright, how can I contribute to this? Your body would still develop through adolescence because you were born primarily human. Even though you have a balance of demonic and human blood, however, you had no chance of fending off the snake in your current state. I tapped into your demon heritage and charged you with my chakra. As you summoned your demonic power, it regenerated your power by enabling your body to grow and feed directly from my chakra. They come closer. It's about time. They have spent the last hour observing us. The spiky-haired boy walked out of the bushes with the mummy-looking genin that must have been Dosu, mockingly saying, "What's this, Dosu? You think the Leaf Genin's teammates are hurt? What the hell happened to you anyway? Anyway, how about you move aside so we can kill Sasuke?" He considered what they said. Ignoring the fool, Orochimaru wants Sasuke killed. Naruto then had a clear view of the girl who emerged behind them. That coward has a lot of nerve to send lackeys to do his dirty work. Not bad. The girl warned the boy named Zaku, saying, "Be careful, Zaku, you saw his arm. We don't know what he's capable of. He must be confident if he didn't set any traps." "Come on, Kin, the guy looks—" "Hey babe," exclaimed Naruto. Kin appeared surprised by Naruto's unexpected focus. She questioned, pointing to herself, "Whomie?" As she turned a bright red, Naruto grinned and said, "Well, I don't see any other babes around. How about you ditch those losers and I show you what a real ninja is like?" Zaku questioned, "You're asking her for a date?" Naruto wanted to laugh at the foolish expressions on the boys' faces, but he said, "Well, yay, just because you two are too stupid to see how hot she is doesn't mean I am." "That's it, you're dead," Zaku exclaimed, lifting his arms to reveal tiny punctures in the middle of his palm. "Zankyokukuha," he exclaimed as a tremendous burst of air sped toward Naruto, tearing up the ground with his palms. The attack appeared to come slowly, but the demon hunter remained composed. Murmuring, Naruto said, "Judgment cut." The blast of wind was easily cancelled out by the crescent blue shockwave that exploded from his blade in stunned silence. The three watched, then Naruto vanished as they blinked. Zaku was forced to his knees when he felt a hand clutch his shoulder and squeeze it painfully. He strained to catch a glimpse of Naruto. "Now you have two choices. One, I can kill you and take your scroll, but that would be messy and I need to get my team out of here. Or two, you can give me your scroll and leave," calmly stated Naruto. Zaku spat at him, inches from his face. "What makes you think you can beat all three of us at once?" Naruto looked at him boredly and sighed. "I can kill you and the mummy over there in a matter of moments, and the girl? By the time I'm through with her she won't even remember her name, and it won't be from pain." Kin was blushing. In front of Naruto and Zaku, Dosu pulled out the scroll and rolled it. Naruto squeezed Zaku tightly. Naruto said, "Pick it up and hand it to me." Zaku reached out slowly and then twisted away from the hold. Zan. Yamato flashed, and Zaku's body was suddenly covered in cuts. Zaku collapsed to the ground as blood gushed from his wounds. A slash that ran from the left side of Dosu's hip to his right shoulder caught him as he was about to back away. Two powerful arms encircled her waist before Kin could even consider moving. She shuddered as his hot breath struck her ear, then turned to see two mesmerizing red eyes. "Don't worry, the cuts were shallow but they won't be getting up for a while. Relax." He moved to mark her neck, feeling his canines sharpen. "Restrain yourself. Isn't the air tainted by the vile chakra?" As Kyuubi's words pierced his lust-filled mind, he abruptly stopped. The claymore crackled with electricity as it struggled to overpower him, and the hand holding the blade was covered in black flame-like markings that appeared to come from the seal on his neck. Naruto put the girl down gently and turned his frustrated eyes to the group of trees that concealed Sakura and Sasuke. A blur crashed into a quickly drawn Yamato. "He's got Alistair." Sasuke's face broke into a deranged smile as he said, "I'll kill you with this power, Itachi." The Uchiha was clearly experiencing hallucinations. Naruto's face was obscured by the shadow of his hair, and Sasuke scowled. "Itachi, do you give up so easily?" Naruto said in a low voice that soon became intense, "You have the worst timing ever." The boy's eyes rolled into the back of his head, crumpling to the ground as the flame marks vanished and the broadsword named Alistair vanished in a flash of electricity. Naruto used Yamato to bat his sword arm away and sent his head crashing into the Uchihas, causing blood to leak from his forehead. Naruto turned back to his fallen teammates after glancing longingly at the unkempt girl who lay on the ground with a line of drool flowing from her mouth, a wistful smile, and glossy eyes. "Arg. Oh no. Kakashi along with his effing Nindo." With Sakura and Sasuke on his shoulders and theirs and the sound team's scroll in his pockets, Naruto leapt off. Before kicking her teammates awake, Kin would quickly come to her senses, beat red, and attempt to conceal the evidence of what had happened, but she would be unable to conceal the bright blush that would appear when one of her teammates swore out Naruto's name. "Be careful, Naruto." She tried to grab a kunai, but her arms wouldn't move, and she felt panic rise in her chest at her helpless situation as Sakura's eyes snapped open and she shot to her feet. "Sakura, please relax." Her eyes adjusted as she turned to see Sasuke sitting over a small fire. Naruto said, "For you not to move too much, you're still recovering." "Naruto is fine, just different." She looked down at her arms and said, "Yeah, where is Naruto?" Sakura noticed the odd mark their attacker had left on him when Sasuke rubbed his neck and said, "Once I woke up, he needed to scout. What's the matter?" "All the blood, sweat, and tears we put into our training and he still defeated us like academy students." She choked back a sob as she looked down, her vision becoming blurry with tears. "We could have died." She must have been under a lot of stress from the attack, because Sasuke put his arms around her and held her close because he didn't want to lose Sakura to madness the way he did Itachi after losing so much. The strange nightmare and the promises of power still tormented his mind, but as she sobbed herself back to sleep, he couldn't help but feel that he needed the comfort just as much as she did. Just this once, for her, he told himself. She could prove to be a problem in Orochimaru-sama's plans should I approach them or leave. While both of them are weakened, Naruto could prove challenging even with my skill, Kabuto said, spying on the moment between the two genin. Cold steel pressed into his neck. "Why are you spying on Kabuto, my team?" "Dangerous question," Naruto said. The spot where the blade touched his neck left a trail of blood. "I guess that's my response." After Kabuto collapsed to the ground, Naruto noticed a figure to his right. He checked the body and said, "This guy is definitely dead," but the figure had already escaped when the summoned swords erupted. "Genin, my ass." When he woke up, he saw Sasuke cradling the sleeping Sakura. "We're heading out," he said. "Obtain while we require. Sakura will be carried by me." He grabbed Sakura's bridal style and jumped off toward the tower with Sasuke, saying, "You're still weak, she'd only be a burden to you. Give us your scrolls and we'll let you live." Dozens of genin with breathing apparatuses on their faces surrounded Naruto and Sasuke as Naruto gave Sasuke the still slumbering Sakura. As he stepped out into the open, Naruto declared, "I got a better idea. I kill you guys, take your scroll, and leave you to rot while we get our teammate to that tower." Together, the soldiers chuckled and said, "We have you surrounded, there is no way you can kill us. You guys picked the wrong team to fuck with today." Blue summoned blades erupted, tearing the genin in front of Naruto to shreds as Naruto's eyes hardened. Hiding behind a false impression, the silver-haired genin multiplied, and in an instant, every illusion was destroyed. Naruto heard a whimper and turned to see the originals cowering in the bushes, and he froze them in place with the intention of killing them. "Kage Bunshin no Justu. Be kind." One whimpered. Naruto's eyes hardened even more. "If that was possible. Sorry, I'm all out of mercy." Sasuke felt his spine tingle at their cries. "I'm sorry, Orochimaru-sama. I was unable to watch over Uchiha Sasuke during the second exam." Kabuto gave a bow. Orochimaru laughed and said, "I didn't think you could. However, I would like to know your thoughts on the Uzumaki boy." "The container of Kyuubi. I think he's really dangerous," Kabuto replied. "Yes, I had the same thought, but what if we were able to persuade him to change sides? I find that our rate of success would increase dramatically, Orochimaru-sama." "You are dismissed, Kabuto-kun." Orochimaru yelled as soon as he was gone. To Yuya-chan. Orochimaru-sama, yes. The girl in disguise materialized before him, kneeling. I have a mission for you, to Yuya-chan. As her eyes opened to try to adjust to the sunlight, Sakura moaned and felt as though she was being held. She saw a flash of silver. Naruto-kun. Hee, Sakura-chan, does saving you make me on par with Sasuke? After her eyes had adjusted, she blushed and let out a gasp. What? Have you finally realized that I look better than Sasuke? Inquired Naruto. Sakura's blush deepened as Naruto grinned at Sasuke's eye twitch. You look, hot, was the last word her inner self said. Not that he wasn't hot before, she told herself. Older? Yes, Naruto stated. I believe something happened with my Kekkei Genkai. They came to a halt in front of a door that had an open seal. Naruto approached the door and remarked, about damn time we got here. When Naruto tightened his hold, Sakura motioned to be disappointed but gave him a questioning glance. You can let me down now, Naruto. No way. He raised a leg and said, if you haven't forgotten, you're still hurt. The last thing you need to be doing is straining yourself. His foot struck the doors, breaking them off their hinges and sending them crashing against the distant wall. Looking around, Naruto exclaimed, what the hell, nobody is here. The paper hanging against one of the walls caught Sakura's attention. Hey, look at that. Earth and heaven. That's it. Give me the scrolls, Naruto. Naruto gave Sasuke a strange expression. Sakura squealed in surprise as Naruto threw her over his shoulder, saying, all right, hold on a sec. Naruto? Sakura inquired. What? The devil hunter, searching his pockets, asked. She said, your hands on my butt. Naruto halted, and she squeaked in surprise as she felt a gentle touch and a squeeze. Sakura sighed in frustration as Sasuke opened the scrolls and tossed them aside as they began to smoke. So, he said cheekily, taking the scrolls and throwing them to Sasuke. Sakura was sitting on the ground when Naruto tensed up. After the smoke dissipated, the words, Iruka-sensei? The three were clearly at ease. Hey everyone. Iruka grinned and said, just in time. Any longer and you would have been disqualified. The door of the apartment was pounded by loud knocks. The mere prospect of Naruto's return made the lady stop running, and she threw open the door, unable to hide her disappointment. Oh, it's just you, she said. She wondered absently when she had begun to miss Naruto so much. Are you okay? You don't look very nice. The girl appeared more feral than the last time Hana saw her, with unkempt hair, more noticeable canines, and a wild expression in her eyes. I need Naruto-kun, Hana stammered as she entered the apartment. Is he present? No. Why is he still attending the Chunin exams? Lady replied, shutting the door after the Inuzuka. I'm in heat. Sarutobi looked at the 7 teams that had passed the second exam as he explained the third one. 3 of the 4 were still rookies, having graduated just a year earlier, and 4 were from Konoha. He fought the urge to smile at them. Though it was odd that the boy avoided his eyes, he did nod in the new Naruto's direction with approval. Naruto had previously told Iruka about his sudden growth, and although it was not explained in detail, it had something to do with his bloodline. Even more bizarrely, the majority of the Kunoichi were blushing and stealing glances at the new Naruto. The Kazukage's daughter was not immune to the boy's charm, as the red-headed girl appeared utterly enamored with him and prepared to attack any of the Kunoichi next to her. Sarutobi concluded his speech by saying, now, let's move on to the third exam. The sickly-looking man shunned in front of Hokage-sama and said, please excuse my interruption, but if you don't mind, I'll take over from here. In response, Sarutobi said, not at all. Hey Hayate-sensei, it appears that you are still very sick, Naruto yelled. For those of you who are unfamiliar with me, my name is Gekko Hayate, and I am the creator of the third exam. However, it appears that we still have too many genin, so preliminary meetings will be held. All but one of the genin erupted in outrage. What are we waiting for? Let's start the celebration. Over the cries, Naruto yelled. Kakashi's one eye turned from his book to her after Anko gave him a nudge in the ribs. I like that one, Kakashi. Can I have him? She pointed to Naruto as she spoke. He said, if you can get past the girls that have already sunk their claws into him. Kakashi's gaze went back to his book. I don't want to share, Anko pouted. Oh well, the woman said thoughtfully. I suppose I'll just go after you instead. Again, the copy nin was lost in his book. Guess so. And yet, what? Kakashi gave her a wide-eyed look in return. She smiled evilly at him and said, nothing, I'm just plotting, don't mind me. Kakashi shut his book and kept a wary eye on her. The coughing Chunin declared, anyone who feels they are not able to compete physically or mentally may forfeit now. Kabuto held up his hand and said, well, I'm outta here then. As Kabuto walked past him, Naruto stiffened. He forced himself to calm down and looked at an immobile Sakura. Willing to forfeit? You still have no use for those arms? No way, I can't stop thinking of it as a challenge, Sakura said with a smile. Sasuke-kun and you were both influencing me. The fangirl was gone, and the girl in front of them was a kunoichi. Naruto and Sasuke both looked at the girl with the pink hair with a newfound respect. The section on the wall behind Hayate rumbled, sliding open to reveal an electronic display board that was already shuffled through names. Now if you would turn your attention to the board we can begin. Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Ikato. Would the two combatants advance? Everyone else leaves the battlefield and heads for the observation area. While the others headed for the upper balconies, both boys approached. As he walked past Sasuke, Kakashi said, don't use the Sharingan. How did you find out? Sasuke inquired in surprise. The man concluded, if the examiners see any signs of the curse mark beginning to take over, you will be disqualified. Kakashi either didn't hear the question or didn't care, probably the latter. Disqualified. The masked boy across from him caught the faint throb of pain the cursed mark gave off, and Sasuke's eye twitched, causing him to laugh. He mockingly remarked, it's not too late to give up, Sasuke-kun. This thing seems to respond to my chakra that just leaves me with taijutsu, said Sasuke, ignoring him. You are to blame for our weakness. Sasuke shook off the images of his nightmare as a younger version of himself yelled. Start. When the shuriken was hurled at him, he reached for a kunai to deflect it, but the cursed seal painfully flared, sending him to the ground. You are to blame for mom and dad's deaths, Itachi. The boy went on, revealing serpentine eyes as he peeled a layer of skin off his face. After looking up and rolling away from a fist that crushed the ground where he had been, the Uchiha hooked his feet around the masked genin's leg and pulled it out from under him, then brought the boy's arm into an arm lock that looked painful. He did this by digging his kunai into the ground as a break. With a glowing hand, the masked nin grabbed the Uchiha by the collar, and the Sharingan wielder felt his strength wane at the touch. Ikato then released his hold and punched the Uchiha hard in the chin before turning and grabbing the Uchiha's head. Sasuke attempted to pry the genin's hand away from his head, but his strength failed him, and his arms dropped to his sides. You allowed them to perish. His snake-eyed counterpart let out a cry of agony. Taking his abandoned kunai, Sasuke stabbed the masked genin in the arm. The metal bit into the boy's skin, causing him to cry out in agony. The skin surrounding the kunai burned as the cursed seal flared and electricity crackled around it. Sasuke attempted to fend off the repulsive yet addictive chakra after kicking the boy away. I can defeat him without this power. Sasuke exhaled in relief as the cursed seal moved away. He felt his kunai was heavier. For some reason his hand held an intricate claymore crackling with electricity. When he looked down in his mind, a deep voice spoke. I am Alistair, the weapon of an avenger. The weak shall give their heart and swear their eternal loyalty to me. Can you control my power? Sasuke assumed a stance he had seen Naruto employ frequently. Observe me. Naruto was aware of his streak attack position. I doubt you can pull it off on the first try, even if you do have a sword. Do not question my vassal Alistair's strength. Dante defeated Mundus with it and Ifrit, Kyuubi said quietly. Alistair will not have a weak arm to wield the Uchiha. He will either become a deadly enemy or a powerful ally. Sasuke thrust his blade forward, gliding forward and taking a strong step, though it was appropriate for a weapon that pierced rather than cut. The resemblance was similar to Naruto's stake attack as the blade pierced Ikato's chest and exploded out of his back in a flurry of blood. His eyes grew wide. Coughing up blood, Ikato remarked, but I thought Konoha shinobi were too soft to kill. After removing his blade from the boy's chest and allowing him to drop to his knees, Sasuke cleaned the blood off his shoulder. Simply and emotionlessly, the Uchiha said, you thought wrong. The masked genin collapsed to the ground as his eyes glazed over. Uchiha Sasuke is the winner, Hayate exclaimed to the audience while the medical staff hurried to take Zaku's body away while the Suna genin and Team 7 remained unfazed. Many Konoha genin were shocked that Sasuke had actually killed his opponent. Killing had already been introduced to Team 7. Naruto yelled, hey, that's my move, you bastard. Sasuke grinned as he looked up. A hand settled on his shoulder and said, that's my move, Naruto, it's stinger not streak. Not bad, making your own technique from Naruto's. Now let's get rid of that seal, shall we? Replied Kakashi. A cloud of smoke engulfed them both. Naruto simply sighed and crossed his arms. He looked at the board and shifted through the names, saying, what a fucking copycat. I'm going to have to show him how it's done when we fight. Abumi Zaku vs S. Aburame Shino. Zaku grinned, certain of his triumph despite his bandaged body. Who's this loser? Hayate raised his hand as they entered the stadium, Zaku a little stiff from his injuries. Putting his arm down, he exclaimed, "Second match, begin." After the Aburame was struck by a Zankuha, Hinata stammered, "Do you think Shino-kun will be alright?" In stark contrast to his usually boisterous demeanor, Kiba stayed silent. Kurenai gave the Inuzuka an odd look and replied, "I'm sure Shino will be fine." Hinata. Sakura inquired, "What happened to him?" Most of the bandages covering the boy's body had a red tint from his movement. Naruto said simply, "Yamato." Zaku had already been caught in a sort of bug technique by Shino. As intricate seals slithered up his body to circle the cursed seal, Sasuke swallowed the scream that threatened to escape. When the sealing was complete, he collapsed to the ground. This seal will hold back the cursed mark should it awaken in the future, Sasuke, but only if you have the will to for it to do so. Its power is derived from you. Should you lose yourself, the seal will weaken and the cursed mark will run rampant. Kakashi clarified. As fatigue overtook him, Sasuke closed his eyes and enjoyed the sensation of the cold stone against his blazing skin. So advanced in the methods of sealing, I see, but it will do little good. Kakashi's eyes narrowed as he turned to face the snake summoner, Orochimaru. As the snake Sannin emerged from the shadows, he remarked, "You think my influence over him is just manifested through the seal, but it is also the sword. Alistair is a powerful weapon, but difficult to control. He'll need the cursed seal to master it." "Just what are you after?" "Why, I want your team, Kakashi. I was just going to take Sasuke for the Sharingan, but soon the rumors of the Kyuubi boy caught my interest, and then the girls surprised me in the forest. I really must thank you for developing them so well for me, but I'll be taking them off your hands soon." The snake Sannin was insanely excited. The abrupt sound of 1,000 birds interrupted him. Holding his signature move, Kakashi said dangerously, "I won't let that happen." "Oh my goodness, how exactly do you intend to accomplish that? The gap between them isn't that great yet, but it will widen. Hasn't the council already prohibited you from instructing Naruto so that you can concentrate on Sasuke?" "How?" The sight of Kakashi's attack vanished. "Don't look so surprised. Kakashi, the council is so very predictable," Orochimaru said as he started to leave, his back to the camera. "It's funny because the council is growing more wary of the women who live with the boy, despite the Hokage's defense of them. And yet they would see me if they just looked under their noses," the man concluded, disappearing back into the darkness. Sasuke was picked up by Kakashi, who said, "Orochimaru, I don't care how strong you are. If you threaten my team, I'll kill you, even if it means losing my life." "So, guys, what am I missing?" While he was away, Guy and his student Lee joined Naruto and Sakura, along with the Kage's red-headed daughter, who seemed happy to simply cling to Naruto. "What?" Kakashi asked as he walked out of a cloud of smoke. Naruto responded, seemingly unconcerned by the redhead clinging to his arm or the fact that she stood between him and Sakura, casting suspicious glances at the pink-haired girl whenever she approached too closely. "Nothing, just a puppet fighting a rubber band." Naruto must be blind to miss the girl's love. Kakashi had no idea that Naruto wasn't nearly as blind as people thought. "Is Sasuke-kun going to be okay, Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura inquired. Kakashi pointed to the electronic board that had selected the next fighters and said, "He'll be fine, but I think you should be more focused on your fight. Yamanaka Ino vs Haruno Sakura, start the match 4. Sakura remarked, "Give up, Ino, you can't beat me. Avoid being arrogant around me, forehead girl." "You have no jutsu without arms," Ino yelled, losing her momentary worry for her friend. Sakura lifted her leg and stomped the ground, creating a web of cracks in the stone, saying, "Who said anything about me using jutsu? I'm getting pretty good at it, but I've gotten nowhere near to mastering this." The Chunin were all thinking, just what the hell has Kakashi been teaching those kids? And the majority of the spectators were amazed by the technique that had not been seen since Tsunade left. All of them looked at the silver-haired member of the Copy Nin's team, wondering what his skills were, and none of them really expected the lazy Chunin to train his genin. To say they were surprised would be an understatement. The Uchiha can use a weapon to generate and focus lightning chakra, and now the girl has incredible chakra control to the point of partially replicating Tsunade's legendary strength. "What was that? It couldn't be her strength alone," Lee inquired. Taking a serious look at Kakashi, Guy replied, "That, my youthful student, is chakra control. I was not aware you had the knowledge to teach such high-level chakra control, Kakashi." "She was the only one who increased her authority. I only gave her basic instruction and direction," the one-eyed Chunin calmly replied. Ino staggered away, But Sakura didn't press her attack as she rushed forward and ducked under the blonde's punch while driving her knee into the girl's stomach. Sakura charged once more, saying, "Stop holding back, Ino, because from here on I'm not." As she ducked beneath a roundhouse and punched the pink-haired girl, Ino wondered, when did she change so much? Sakura outmatched her in strength and speed, but her attacks were slow and limited because she didn't use her arms. Ino crossed her arms in front of her and sent as much chakra as she could in a quick block, causing Sakura to stumble back for a moment before retaliating with a powerful kick. The kick struck her guard and sent her flying back, and Ino used her momentum to backflip and land on her feet. "With just one kick she almost broke both my arms, even though enhanced with chakra," Ino said. "Ino, what's wrong? Getting in the way with all that hair?" When Ino reached into her weapon's pouch, Sakura tensed, but she was taken aback when she severed her ponytail. "To me, this is meaningless," the girls shouted before throwing the hair to the ground and making the hand sign for Shintention. "I'll make you give up." Jutsu no Shintention. Sakura tried to dodge, but her legs were caught by hair that was guided by chakra. Sakura remained motionless as Ino's body sagged, but then she spoke abruptly, "Examiner, I Haru no Sakura," and clutched her head painfully. "Get out of my head, Ino." After being struck with enough force to make an angry Akamichi blush, Ino found herself back in her own body. Sakura hovering over her. "She ejected me," the blonde said, immobilized. "I don't have anything left." "I yield?" She sighed. Sakura's legs gave way as soon as Ino finished speaking, but Kakashi grabbed her before she could fall to the ground, and Asuma seemed to take Ino in his arms. Gruffly, he said, "You did well, Ino." Sakura was brought back to the balcony by Kakashi, who gently placed her on the ground and said, "I'm very proud, Sakura." She said, "Thanks, Kakashi-sensei." Tamari vs. Tenten. Despite the cheers of her green-clad teammate, Naruto saw the weapon mistress's attack halted when Gaara's sister easily defeated her by catching her in a high-level wind jutsu and catching her with the battle fan where the girl with the bunny's hair bent at an agonizing angle. The Sand Nin's disdain for his teammate infuriated Lee, but Guy restrained him. Shikamaru Nara vs. Tsuchi Kin. Even though he was brilliant, Naruto's desire for Kin diminished when he saw how easily the Nara outstrategized him. Aside from a bell technique and very basic abilities, he couldn't even see any potential in jutsu. "You only saw her as a woman because of the lust that resulted from your abrupt maturation, as you can see. Marking her will not make her last." Although it irritated him to acknowledge it, she was correct when she said, "There is no place for weakness among your mates." Naruto sighed. Uzumaki Naruto vs. Inuzuka Kiba. Naruto said, "About damn time." "NYU?" She tilted her head in inquiry as she asked. As she leaned into Naruto's pat on her head, he said, "Don't worry, I'll be back before you know it." The spectators, all eager to see what Kakashi's final team member could do, were shocked when the demon hunter abruptly disappeared and then reappeared in the arena using an air trick. "So what's this one's power?" "The Uchiha is skilled with the sword he summoned and the girl's chakra control is phenomenal," Asuma observed, observing the boy's arm. "And that arm is unlike any bloodline I've ever seen," he thought, examining the boy's arm. Kurenai was certain that Kiba would win because the Inuzuka was the best in his class in taijutsu and he couldn't possibly lose to the dead last. Kiba jumped over the railing and said gravely, "Lucky me. I'll make that bastard pay for marking Hana." "Show me how far you've come," Naruto, Hayate said calmly. "Match 7, begin." "So it was your scent," Kiba said calmly as she removed 2 chakra pills. "Before, I wasn't sure, but now I'm certain Hana was marked by you." Naruto pondered, "I marked Hana." Before he realized, shit. That must have been why she acted so strangely after our battle. Shikyaku no Jutsu. Kiba sealed his hands together after swallowing 1 pill and giving the other to Akamaru, causing the dog's fur to turn red. The Inuzuka dropped to his knees and abruptly became more savage. "Now, Akamaru." On his back, the tiny puppy leapt. Jujin Bunshin. A second Kiba that appeared to be just as savage as the first one took the place of the dog in a puff of smoke. "I'm not cool with it, but she might be. Prove to me you can keep her safe," the original said as they both leapt to their knees and charged at Naruto with remarkable speed. Naruto unsheathed Yamato and said, "I'll be happy to kick your ass if that's how you want it." Not so quick. The area in front of him was covered in smoke after the Inuzuka detonated a smoke bomb. Gatsuga. The blinded Naruto was ripped apart by 2 tiny vortices, which caused him to crash into the wall with enough force to create a tiny crater. The original Kiba spat, and the other one stepped closer to stiffen the air, saying, "You're not good enough for my sister. You taught the Uchiha and the girl but not him?" Asuma thought, clearly disappointed. Kurenai thought, I knew it, the boy is still just the dead last. What followed astounded them both. The Kiba flew back, but was snagged by the ethereal form of Naruto's arm and flung into the air as Naruto blurred in front of one of the Inuzuka and slammed his Devilbringer arm into his face. After using an air trick to disappear, he reappeared behind the Kiba and swung his sword down to cast a judgment cut, sending the Kiba crashing to the ground. As the blue crescent struck him, Naruto landed lightly beside the smoking trench, and when the smoke cleared, the little dog could be seen whimpering weakly. Naruto sheathed Yamato and remarked, "It's just you and me, dog breath. I'll rip you to pieces." The Inuzuka became enraged and recklessly charged at Naruto. The silver-haired devil hunter then launched a barrage of punches on the Inuzuka that gradually grew more intense after Naruto's human arm stopped the wild slash that was headed for his head, and a strong uppercut from his ethereal devil bringer knocked Kiba off his feet. Naruto grabbed Kiba by the collar with his human hand and brought his ethereal devil bringer back. When the glowing devil bringer struck Kiba's stomach, he felt the world vanish. He went to his knees, coughing up blood, and nearly fell to the ground, but Naruto grabbed him by the head and made him look up. "Your nonsense doesn't interest me. Hana was mine when I marked her. Anything that tries to hurt her will be destroyed by me." The Inuzuka was then flung across the arena when Naruto's ethereal devil bringer struck him in the face. The boy was pulling his sleeve over his demonic appendage when Hayate went to check on him. "Strange. The boy is beat up but nothing is broken or ruptured. It's almost if Naruto held back in that assault," Hayate said. Uzumaki Naruto is the winner. The medics quickly gathered Kiba and avoided Naruto like the plague after the coughing Chunin finally made an announcement. Asuma thought, that bloodline limit is something else, now that's more like it. Not possible. Her red eyes astounded Kurenai, who said, he defeated Kiba so easily. Hyuga Neji versus Hyuga Hinata. Neji smirked cruelly and remarked, "I never thought that I'd be meeting you here, Hinata-sama." NN Neji, the heiress, one of the noble founding clans of Konoha, stuttering, "Don't you have any pride? I wonder if you even had the nerve to join this exam of your own will? Or did you believe your teammates could protect you?" "I entered to see change myself," Hinata exclaimed, displaying her shyness. Neji activated his Byakugan and exclaimed, "I can see with my eyes that you will never change." Then, with veined eyes, Neji looked at Naruto, the speaker, and said, "Then you are truly blind. I see the potential in her." Hinata only needed Naruto's assistance to concentrate calmly. She moved into a soft fist position despite appearing surprised by her sudden audacity. Negi adopted a posture similar to hers. In an instant, the distance between them narrowed, and they were soon engaged in the delicate fist-fighting style, a lovely yet lethal dance. The blows were so strong that when they were blocked or deflected, the chakra was visible. Naruto found it difficult to control his temper as the battle continued. When Neji closed her Tenketu, it was clear that he was more skilled than Hinata. "How can he treat his own family that way?" Naruto remarked as he saw the girl struggle back to her feet after Neji viciously knocked her down. Naruto's blue eyes were starting to bleed faintly with red. Although Nayu's presence prevented him from acting hastily, Naruto lost it when Neji attempted to kill him despite having already won. Neji's blood ran cold as he found himself staring into blood-red eyes. Yamato shuddered close to his neck, and Hayate's blade was the only thing holding it back behind Naruto. Kakashi held his devil bringer in a hammerlock to prevent Neji's chakra-enhanced palm from hitting anyone. Guy placed him in a headlock. A pale Hinata appeared beside Kurenai. Kakashi said calmly but in a tone that made no room for debate, "Stand down, Naruto, that's an order." When Naruto sheathed Yamato, his eyes ceased to glow red. Kakashi let him go, but he was positioned so that he could easily catch the boy if he tried to pursue Neji. Naruto was there to catch Hinata when she abruptly passed out and started coughing up blood. Someone calling for the medics was faintly audible to Naruto. It was like witnessing Kairi's death again, and everything seemed to slow down. "No, I promise never to allow that to occur again." Naruto placed his glowing devil bringer over Hinata's chest and allowed the calming blue light to permeate her while everyone watched as he revealed his Sharingan. Kakashi shifted to restrain Kurenai. There was a shout from the Genjutsu mistress, "Get him away from her." "Wait, Kurenai, he's healing her." Kakashi realized that Naruto was neutralizing Neji's chakra by channeling his own into Hinata. Hinata was breathing normally when the glow eventually subsided. After inhaling deeply, Naruto turned to face Neji with a focused killing intent. "If we meet in the finals, I will crush you." Naruto then returned to the balcony using an air trick, leaving Hinata in the care of the Med Nin. Rock Lee vs. Gaara. Lee appeared to have a burning eye. Eager for his fight, he leapt down and exclaimed, "Yosh, it's my turn and I will not disappoint." Nayu's changed her personality from innocent to irritated before vanishing in a sand whirlpool. Even after removing his weights, the green beast was only able to land one axe kick, demonstrating Lee's exceptional taijutsu skills. He gained enough strength to breach Gaara's defense when he opened 5 of the 8 chakra gates, but the green beast was reduced to a helpless position after using the gates. All of the sand and sound ninjas were taken aback when Gaara, who had survived the formidable Urarenge, chose not to move in for the kill. Lee was unable to continue, so Gaara won the match. It was anticipated that Lee would eventually fully recover because he only suffered damage to the gates. Gaara materialized alongside Naruto in a whirlpool of sand as soon as the match was called. She asked, still in her Gaara mode, "Did I do good, Naruto-kun?" He patted her head and said, "Yay, I'm very proud of you for not killing him." To his shame and the amusement of Sakura and Kakashi, she grinned and glomped him. As Kakashi watched Naruto smile at the girl who had transformed back into the NYU persona, he thought, she's not exactly what I expected when they warned us of the Sand Jinchuriki. But, Naruto, if you put in enough effort, you can bring out the best in everyone. Actually, Choji and Dosu's most recent match was rather pitiful when Choji stopped using his clan technique. Dosu was able to take him out with a single blow. The medics moved the Akamichi quickly. The winners were now facing the Hokage. Congratulations on passing the preliminaries. Now please draw a number from the box. Anko has to decide the order of the final exam. When Kakashi drew for 2 of his students, Anko gave him a cunning glance that Naruto saw. Naruto. 1 Sakura, 10 Sasuke, 4 Shikamaru, 8 Kankuro, 5 Dosu, 9 Gaara, 3 Temari, 7 Neji, 2 Shino, 6 Ibiki. Presented them with a chart that listed the finals order. First match, Hyuga Neji vs Uzumaki Naruto. Match 2, Uchiha Sasuke vs Sabaku no Gaara. Kankuro vs Aburame Shino in match 3. Temari vs Nara Shikamaru in match 4. Fifth match, Haruno Sakura vs Kinuta Dosu. When Neji saw the Uzumaki boys staring at him with faint red traces bleeding into his eyes, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Someone knocked on Naruto's door. Waking him up groggily, he pushed the closest pillow closer to him for warmth. Ignoring it, however, his eyes snapped open to discover all of his friends in bed with him. After that, pillow gave a little weary groan and tucked itself into him. Despite his best efforts, all he could recall from yesterday was the Chunin exams. He couldn't even recall how he returned. Kyuubi made fun of him by saying, "My poor vassal, you can't remember? I sure can. Damn it, what happened? A devil's lust can't be suppressed forever, but when I released it your mates were all too happy to sat that lust when you came back. It was so very satisfying to watch through your eyes. Did you possess me? No, it was all you, a different side of you, but you nonetheless." The person's constant knocking jolted the teenager out of his reverie. They were determined to talk to him or break down the door, regardless of who they were. As he made his way to the door, he untangled himself from the women, causing some weary moans, and put on a pair of boxers that were lying around. He cracked it open and looked out. The teen asked, "What do you want, closet pervert?" after making sure the door to his room was shut. Ebisu appeared to trip over the demeaning but accurate moniker. "That is Ebisu Sensei to you. Are you deaf? I have been knocking for the past 10 minutes and such indecency is inexcusable." The teenager gave an evasive response, saying, "I was sleeping and this is my house. What do you want? Why, if I had been an assassin, you'd be dead right now." Gazing around the apartment behind the teenager, the tutor remarked, "And I could have sworn I heard voices. Listen, I'm going to make this as simple as possible. You tell me why you're here or my door is going to slam in your face." The man straightened slightly. "How dare you? Kakashi sent me with a scroll. I believe it contains training exercises you are to do while he's away." The teenager took the scroll and asked, "Away?" Naruto's eyes narrowed, disapproving of the way this man described one of his mates. "Yes, away. He must train the Uchiha to face the Sand Monster." One girl yelled, "Naruto-sama, come back to bed." The tutor angrily exclaimed, "Who was that? You had better not be doing vile perverted acts." For a moment, Naruto appeared to examine Ebisu's face. "Hey Ebisu, did you get a doctor to look at your nose yet?" Ebisu's rage gave way to interest. "Why, what's wrong with my nose?" Slam. "Oh. My nose." Naruto brushed off the fictitious dirt with a clap of his hands. "Now to find out what happened yesterday. There were test subjects who had passed away long ago, vials filled with odd liquids of all colors, and test tubes of all sizes in the lab. Dust clung to corners and rodents and insects scampered along the floors, giving the impression that the place had been deserted for years. Unfazed by the sick experiments around them, Two men stood in the middle of the room, near a single vial filled with a red substance, watching numbers flash across a computer screen. As you can see, Orochimaru-san, the tests were an overall a success. His blood has opened new doors to my experiments. My research at Fortuna was nothing compared to this. I am still amazed at how close a demon's genetic structure is to that of a human at the second cursed seal level. With this we should be able to... Anyus stopped when a figure appeared. Tayuya knelt in front of them and said, Orochimaru-sama, I spied on Uzumaki Naruto as ordered. Anyus stammered angrily, this BB better be important to justify why your interruption, GG girl. Orochimaru's presence in the room caused Tayuya to bite back the insult that was about to spill out. She answered, keeping her head down, I was able to watch his fight between the Inuzuka and did reconnaissance on his home. The preliminary battle proved that Uzumaki Naruto is highly skilled in kenjutsu. Orochimaru cut in, I know of his skills, Tayuya. I want to know what drives him. He refused my offer of power, me, one of the Sannin, the man yelled. Tayuya blurted out, he also has followers. Orochimaru-sama. She sensed that the man was watching her now, that he was interested in her. She went on with a little more assurance. 4 women, each powerful fighters and completely loyal to him due to the Inuzuka. Among them my information is limited, but I have made logical guesses based on their attire and movement. For a while, the snake Sannin was silent. Continue your progress, Anyus. Tayuya. I want all the information you were able to gather, now. Naruto examined the flushed faces of his companions. They were all seated at the kitchen table after cleaning up. So let me get this straight. Basically I got back yesterday and made love with each of you. The only person who could look at him without blushing was Trish. Basically you also caused Neo to go into devil maturation. You must have somehow pulled power from the sand demon sealed inside her. Looking red-headed, Naruto turned to face the now 16-year-old. She had retained all of her former curves, was taller, and had longer hair that reached her back. Speaking of hair, Naruto needed to get his trimmed. It hadn't bothered him much since he grew up. In fact, he had hardly noticed. However, everything went haywire this morning when he attempted to wash it. Naruto couldn't imagine how Trish managed to keep up with her hair. It had taken an eternity to comb out all the knots and clean out the different fluids. Refusing to grab Yamato and cut it all off had required a great deal of self-control. However, he persevered, arranging it in a more manageable ponytail and reminding himself to visit the barber right away. But let's get back to the topic at hand. Naruto sighed, and I can't remember any of it. You know, Hana straddled his lap and smiled mischievously at him. I could help you remember, if you want. The hungry glint in her eye was visible to Naruto. Hana pouted and Naruto resisted the impulse to throw her to the ground and grab her, saying, as tempting as that sounds, I'm gonna have to pass. The sand ninja are most likely panicking since Gaara never went back, and I'm sure your mother is probably worried about you as well. And then there is Kiba. Hana's pout disappeared as she gave Naruto a menacing look. What about Kiba? Naruto began to perspire uneasily and said, well, he kind of got beat up during the preliminaries. She snarled, and just who did he face? Naruto remained silent. Naruto's mind was blaring with the warning. Alright. I beat him up because he didn't think I could protect you. She jabbed him in the chest and said, my life is none of Kiba's business. And you? Without asking any questions, you will make it up to me. What? Why? I took no action. Hana just glared at him. Fine. Ah, don't look so angry, Naru-kun. I'm sure you'll enjoy what I have in mind just as much as I will. Hana grinned and planted a kiss on his lips. She pressed her hips against his for emphasis. Or I could just have you watch the Inuzuka children, she said, standing up and moving toward the door with a menacing smile on her face as her hand hovered over the doorknob. You wouldn't dare. Hana merely laughed and closed the door after Naruto narrowed his eyes and went pale. NYU, you should be heading back too, Naruto sighed. You. Before she left, the girl gave him a quick peck and chirped. Before he noticed the scroll that Ebisu had left behind, Naruto watched her leave. Trish, lady, do you think you could assist me with my training? I have a better idea. The man who was concealed in the shadows was struck by Naruto's devil bringer. When Kakashi finally came to a halt in a clearing encircled by big, dense trees, he took a deep breath of fresh air and reveled in the quiet peace it offered. Konoha was pleasant but noisy, and the air was tainted with business. No city could match the true glory of nature. One of the many streams flowed into a lake and continued into the trees, formed by a nearby mountain in the distance. During the 14 hours it took to get here, Kakashi had them spar as a group at full speed through the challenging terrain. While he led them, Sakura and Sasuke landed to either side of him. Breathing heavily, Sakura's legs failed her and she fell on her butt, while Sasuke fared only marginally better, staying upright on his unsteady feet. With one eyebrow raised, Kakashi turned back to his two students and said, "Don't tell me you guys are tired, we haven't even started yet." Slave driver. Sasuke was too exhausted to even attempt to appear irritated. Sakura would have agreed with her inner self when she said, "What a sadist, Shaw," but she was already dozing off. Kakashi said, "On your feet, Genin." They both leapt straight up, concealing any signs of exhaustion. "Wow, Kakashi, they're really skilled. Are they also able to roll over and fetch?" A Shunshin's smoke materialized in front of them. "Anyone except her." The two Genin pondered. Mitarashi Anko appeared in all Hermodest splendor as the smoke cleared. Or maybe I should teach them a new trick since I've been waiting for so long. Play dead. She threw two kunai at the Genin after they slid into her hand. Sakura had taken her own stance, and Sasuke was in a defensive position in front of her when Alistair flashed, batting the two kunai away. "Oh, they even work as a team. I'm impressed," Anko replied. At Kakashi's authoritative tone, the woman gradually lowered herself from her stance, saying, "That's quite enough, Anko." Sakura and Sasuke remained poised before gradually lowering their own positions, but they were both prepared to move at the first hint of Anko's movement. Kakashi, with his face concealed behind his orange book, thought, "Sasuke is already beginning to rely on the sword Orochimaru gave him." Kakashi moved ahead of the female. Sakura and Sasuke were taken aback that the Chunin would turn away from such a dangerous woman, but Anko remained motionless. "Now that we've all been introduced, let me explain." Anko generously offered her assistance in training along with many threats to my health if I refused her offer, and since I can't focus on you two at the same time when this is not team development training, she will be sparring with one while I focus my teaching on other in turns. The woman licked one of her kunai and said, "Call me Anko-sensei." However, she remained motionless. They hadn't even witnessed her draw the weapon, and when Kakashi spoke, they briefly looked away from her. The thought of sparring with her made both Genin frightened. They questioned whether Naruto's defiance of her during the second exam was brave or simply foolish. Kakashi takes a moment to process it. "Now, you two are going to be faced against very dangerous opponents. We will be focusing on mainly strengths, weaknesses, and battle strategies. You both need to increase your skill in taijutsu if you plan to survive in close quarters, and I will also teach you a few more ninjutsu for your arsenal as soon as I find out Sakura's chakra nature." "But Kakashi-sensei," exclaimed Sasuke, "I have Alistair, why can't learn more kenjutsu?" The Uchiha remained silent when asked, "And just where did you get that sword, Sasuke?" "That sword came from Orochimaru as a gift. But his gift comes with a very steep price. You can't use that blade. Orochimaru's power over you will only grow." With a defiant shout, Sasuke said, "That's not true." Sakura said, "Orochimaru doesn't have any power over Alistair." And Anko appeared disinterested in the debate. "But he does control the seal, and you can't use the sword's electrical power without it, or you risk doing just as much damage to yourself as the opponent," Kakashi murmured. "It's the same," Sasuke whispered to himself. "What?" inquired the one-eyed Chunin. "It's the same as the power Naruto uses. It's of the same nature as his arm." Kakashi harshly remarked, "Naruto's bloodline is still a mystery to all of us." Sasuke stopped protesting. Sasuke's eyes dropped to the floor as he was told, "I will teach you how to use the sword, Sasuke, but you are forbidden from using whatever powers it may hold." Sasuke's eyes remained down, but the atmosphere relaxed as he said, "Instead of the sword's electrical power, I'll teach you my original jutsu, which basically has the same result." And as for Sakura, Kakashi took a tiny piece of paper out of his bag. He handed her the item and said, "Focus your chakra into this." Kakashi laughed to himself when she did so because of what the paper showed. Anko shoved past him to look at the soggy paper Sakura was holding and asked, "What's so funny, Kakashi?" "I should have known. A tranquil pond 1 minute and a raging tsunami the next," Kakashi clarified. "Now we can begin the real training." The ethereal blue arm was knocked away by the man in red. Using his bare hand, Yamato was approaching to cut him in two. But Naruto was already in front of him. The man blocked after removing a claymore from his back. Naruto attempted to push him away, but the older man simply grinned as they stood there, sparks flying from their blades. Whoosh! Bam! Smack! Before glaring at one another, they both simultaneously asked the blonde, "Ow, Trish, what the hell?" After letting go of her defensive stance, Lady was ready to assist Naruto when Trish intervened. With a few sparks flying from the dented frying pan in her hand, Trish said menacingly, "Dante-sama, I know you wish to test Naruto-sama, but my kitchen is not the place." Naruto leapt to his feet and pointed at the man in red, saying, "Wait, Dante? This guy is Dante?" The man proudly picked himself up and said, "The one and only, Runt." Dante's eye witted, "Who you calling Run?" Old man. Besides, shouldn't you be dead? I thought demons didn't live that long. Dante kicked his feet up and sat down at the table. Didn't that bitch trying to control you tell you everything? If a demon can get strong enough, their body becomes self-sustaining in order to fight more. The woman looked at him irritably. She had never seen him before but felt as though she knew him from somewhere. Trish, got some grub around here? In the back of his mind, Naruto heard the Kyuubi growl, but he chose to ignore her. Naruto walked over to push the man's feet down and then sat down opposite him, asking, "Immortality?" He continued to look around and said, "Not exactly, but you get the idea." Naruto sat across from him, Lady and Trish by his sides, and asked, "So, if you're immortal, why are you here?" Dante put his signature. He looked at Lady and Trish and said, "I'm not immortal. As for why I'm here, that's simple. I've got a little test for you, and only you. Pass and you'll find something you've lost. Fail and well, you die." "And if I refuse?" asked Naruto. "Simply put," Dante said, "you can't. Like it or not, you're a main piece in this game." "Game?" Naruto sighed in frustration. "You sound a lot like the Kyuubi right now." "Of course, she is one of the players and you're her vassal. Her way of moving among the humans easier." Naruto questioned, "And what are you, a player or a piece?" The man gave an evasive response, "Come back alive and I might tell you." "What do I have to do?" Dante rose from his chair and approached a widow. "I sent a demon named Lucia to retrieve an artifact from an infested castle in a place called Fortuna. That was almost 3 months ago. I think a more powerful demon may have taken residence there and ambushed her. I'm sure she's still alive as I can still sense her." Naruto questioned, "You sense her? You made her something?" Dante turned to face him and said, "No, she works under me just like Trish did." "Did? When you marked Trish as your mate you claimed her. She still has to listen to direct commands from me as she swore herself as a servant to Sparta's line, but I can't make unreasonable demands or take her from you." Dante looked at the blonde, who was looking away. "Still can't believe you managed to mark and bed her. Not even I could manage that. Everything was always business with her, never let her guard down." "And just how do I get to this Fortuna castle?" Dante looked back at him and remarked, "You sure ask a lot of questions for a demon hunter, kid." "Sorry, all this game crap has thrown me off a bit. Usually I ask only 2. What is it and how do I kill it?" sarcastically replied Naruto. After giving him a brief glance, Dante grinned. Naruto simply glared at him and said, "For a successor of Virgil, you sure act more like me. Anyway, you'll find a portal in the training ground your team used. You go there, get Lucia and the artifact out and kill the demons that have taken residence there." "How'd?" Dante interrupted him. "You're of the same blood as me, kid. I've been keeping tabs on your progress since you awakened." "Geez, stalking kids isn't a good hobby, you know." Dante scowled. He vanished in a haze of red, saying, "For your sake, I'm going to ignore that." Naruto sighed and turned to face Lady and Trish. "Hey, that's my air trick," he exclaimed. "Well, what do you two think?" The woman was the first to speak. "He is part demon and powerful." Naruto muttered more to himself than to them. "Yay, when I locked blades with him it didn't even look like he was trying. Is he a threat to us, Trish?" The blonde replied, "No, but it would be wise to cooperate with him." Naruto stood up and picked up his coat, saying, "It doesn't seem like there's much of a choice." The door slammed behind him, saying, "Don't cause too much trouble while I'm gone, and no shopping sprees." Lady and Trish exchanged glances. Lady asked, "Did you find where he hid it?" Trish produced a wallet in the shape of a frog, bulging with cash. "I'm hurt that you doubted me. I am very thorough when I clean," as if he could hide his ramen money from me. As Naruto entered the training area, a chill ran down his spine. That can't be good, he thought, but his mind quickly wandered. "You think you made it clear enough, G?" The portal was located in front of the memorial stone. After giving it a thorough examination, he reluctantly reached out and touched it before the portal dragged him off his feet and engulfed him as it closed behind him. Naruto rolled across the ground after being flung out of the portal. Gazing out at the expansive snow-covered mountains that spanned the horizon, he stood and brushed the snow away. In front of him, an ancient castle peered around the cliff. He glanced over his shoulder and saw the portal, which he thought was taunting him. This place couldn't have been on a tropical island, he asked himself. He began to lumber over to the castle. He stepped on a stone bridge and muttered, "What an asshole, he could have told me this place was in a frozen wasteland. And even better, the bridge is out." He hadn't even noticed until the very end because he had been too busy griping and berating Dante. "Slow down, kid." Kyuubi reprimanded. The teenager turned around and thought sarcastically, "Oh, and the player has graced the pawn with her presence. In my opinion, you resemble a queen more than a mere pawn." Naruto halted in mid-step and uttered, "And supposed to make me, a guy, Feel better? Yes. A pawn that can only move once and remove a diagonal piece next to it is not nearly as powerful as the queen, who has virtually limitless movement on the board, she said. I don't see where gender should apply. After a moment of standing, Naruto said, you know, you're almost as annoying as Dante. I am completely unlike him, she yelled, and Naruto had to support his head because it felt like a hammer was cracking it open. I have also provided Red Queen with a solid form. It is now a weapon distinct from Ifrit and Yamato. Your devil form ought to have grown up too. I appreciate you providing me with a weapon to use against your adversaries, and I've already transformed into the devil for Red Queen, Naruto remarked irritably. Yes, but the first time you changed, it was also lacking, like the others, to get used to the abrupt change. Yamato made you gradually adjust and even get angry too soon, in contrast to the full form used when you battled Echinda. The holder of Shikaku Ifrit was not fully developed during the battle. It was smaller, weaker, and had unpredictable control over its flames. And why are you telling me this at this time? Is it because you think I'll start to doubt you and deviate from your plans if you don't tell me more? Naruto inquired. You are very smart for a half-breed and even more insightful. How much will the form change from when I used it against Orochimaru? Naruto asked. I'll take that as a yes. The form will not change entirely, but you can expect some additions or slight changes the next time you use Devil Trigger with Red Queen. After he caught himself, Naruto saw the tower next to the bridge collapse and fall onto it, shattering the brittle support beneath it and causing it to collapse as well. Naruto fell with the debris before flickering and fading away entirely as the bridge rumbled. As the stones from the demolished bridge and tower smashed into the ground behind him, scattering rubble, snow, and frozen earth everywhere, he landed lightly on some kind of elevated platform. A hollow thump rang in the clearing, and Naruto turned to face the source. Well, at least I don't have to worry about getting to the castle. It loomed in front of him, and in the distance he could see a full bridge leading to the doors. Two large creatures, resembling assaults with lizard-like features but larger, with dark blue skin and some sort of ice armor, were perched atop the gate, hissing as they leapt into the air and shot in his direction. After using Yamato to block the first one's ice-bladed fingertips, Naruto leapt back to avoid the second, which smashed into the ground and sent ice flying in all directions. Had he stayed, he would have been skewered by ice cycles. Frosts. I suggest Ifrit or Red Queen, since these creatures are weak against powerful demonic fires. Red Queen roared to life, fire dancing along the blade as Naruto stabbed Yamato in the ground, closed his eyes in concentration, and then twisted the handle. All right, then. I'm becoming more adept at quickly switching between devil arms. The tornado of fire collided with the first frost lunge forward. 1, 2, slash. Naruto heard a faint ring, dodged two sharp blades of ice that flew past, and blocked the last with his sword as he ran, charging the second frost and calling out Ifrit as the frost raised its shield in preparation. The frost was flung back and rolled across the ground, and Naruto skidded to a stop from his spin. Kick 13. Naruto squatted, accumulating fire in his gauntlet, and swiftly delivered 13 powerful flaming kicks, the last of which broke the ice shield and stunned the reptilian demon. A flame-covered fist struck the ice demon's chin before it could recover, and a pillar of fire sent them both skyward. Naruto, unaffected by his own flames, used his devil bringer to grab the frost by the tail, swing it around, and then launch it at the ground. Using gravity to his advantage, Naruto held his hands together and formed a huge fireball as he fell, then waited until he was directly above the demon before firing the weapon. As he watched the charred demon writhe in agony before passing away, the teenager muttered, "Meteor," and turned to see what had happened to the first. That wasn't there before. The first frost had covered itself in ice while Naruto was occupied. It's getting better. No, you don't. Running toward the creature and leaping into the air. Naruto's anger erupted as his eyes glowed red and he abruptly devil triggered into his Ifrit form. The temperature around him started to rise. It roared again, flames shooting from its mouth before it returned to normal, and Naruto fell to one knee. Ifrit already being replaced by Yamato, the horned demon was consumed in flames and crashed into the ice, causing the ground to collapse beneath it as its hooves crushed the recovering demon beneath them and sent flames everywhere. He caught his breath and said, "Damn, I really need to learn how to control that. I don't even know where to start looking for this Lucia person or even what she looks like," he said as he leapt out of the crater and crossed the bridge to the castle. When he reached the entrance, he whistled and pushed the enormous double doors, which were old but sturdy, but they remained in place. Naruto nodded knowingly. What was I thinking? Of course. In fact, it would be too simple for the doors to open. He yelled at the doors as though doing so would cause them to open. The doors erupted in thousands of lines before collapsing to chunks of rock, and a second later, Yamato flashed in the air and clicked back into its sheath. He stepped over the debris that had been a detailed stone door just moments before and remarked, "I know I should feel bad about ruining such a detailed work of art, but I don't, oh well. Being needlessly violent and destructive is a waste of time and energy, my vassal. I have strange powers because I'm the descendant of a legendary demon," Naruto said, counting off on his fingers. "I'm talking to myself in the middle of an abandoned castle, and I'm dealing with 4 beautiful women who could probably kick my ass if I enraged them. I can't remember losing my virginity to those 4 beautiful women all at once, and I'm a host to the strongest known demon in existence." The words reverberated all around him. "I'm fairly certain that gives me the authority to carry out arbitrary violent and destructive deeds. Now, stop talking unless you have something important to share." He concluded his tirade with these words. Naruto was surprised to find that the first door he attempted opened effortlessly, exposing the spacious hallway beyond. After his brief tirade, Naruto felt better and remarked, "Hey, my luck's looking up." In front of him, 4 dogs the size of a pony skidded to a stop, their skulls made of pure flame, and openings in their charred hide revealed the fire that churned within them. The sounds of animals running reached Naruto's sensitive ears. 4 legs, relatively light, and definitely more than one. A howl reverberated through the chambers, making him cringe in pain. "You know what? Irony, screw you," Naruto yelled. Naruto jumped, allowing the fireball to pass harmlessly beneath him, and as he landed, he witnessed the same dog regenerate a new head of flames. One of them barked before its fiery skull shot out towards him. Kyuubi whispered, "I've never seen a demon like this before, fascinating." Before he realized that the demons were hardly hurt, Naruto smirked as he watched them rise almost unharmed from their companion's fire. Another lunged at him, its skull glowing. Ready to attack, Naruto's ethereal devil bringer grabbed it out of the air and aimed its skull at the other dogs. The dog demon was too late to stop. His shot blasted the others away. Naruto took the dog he was holding and slammed it into the ground, killing it instantly by embedding Yamato in its side. Naruto then withdrew it and sheathed the blade with a flourish. So much for fighting fire with fire. Next up, with icy blue eyes closely observing them, he inquired. Naturally, Naruto chose to perform the honors after each of them appeared to pause for a moment. The demons roared in agony as the blade carved deep gouges into their hides, and as he charged across the room, his blade blurred, leaving only flashes of light behind it, each one blasted back by the shockwave the attack created. The other jumped into the air to follow Naruto, who pushed off the ceiling and, with the help of gravity, split the creature cleanly down the middle. Naruto landed lightly, with 2 exact halves of the demon landing to either side of him. One of them fired its skull in rage, but Naruto blurred and appeared on the ceiling. The last dog attempted to move, but a web of sword slashes surrounded it. The demon whimpered, and all the blades detonated, consuming it in an explosion. Now, there were only 2 left, and both were hurt. Naruto swung Yamato, and a blue arc of energy collided with one, ending its suffering. "With my slash dimension technique, I'm getting faster," Naruto thought in his head. He continued down the hall, ignoring the enormous tapestries that adorned the walls, which, although they were beautiful pieces of art, were of no assistance to him. A few rooms connected to the hall, but they were all blocked by a strong force, and he paused at one in particular, a doorway blocked by a barrier made of interlocking webs of shielding. "You think Yamato could break through it, Kyuubi?" Powerful Naruto inquired. "Why so helpful? You hated my speech a moment ago," the demon said arrogantly. "I'm in demon territory, surrounded by the unknown, whether I like it or not," Naruto said bluntly. "You are a demon of legendary power, and you can give me the information I need." Kyuubi remained silent, carefully considering Naruto's words. "Will you follow my instructions if I decide to give you the information I need?" "Not a chance in hell, but I will pay attention to advice and heed cautions. Deal?" "All right. I would be saddened if my Naru-kun suffered any kind of injury. You are simply too fascinating to let go of." "Are you telling the truth?" Naruto, who wasn't a novice at her game, inquired. "If I listen to you, even if I don't behave the way you desire, I will get the information I need." "As the Kyuubi no Yoko, you have my word, young half-breed. I don't want to make these decisions, I'd like to watch you make them." "Can Yamato break through this obstacle?" As Kyuubi appeared to consider his current power, Naruto waited for a while. "No, you are neither a strong enough demon nor a master of Yamato. 2 demons, who are highly skilled in this field, are in charge of this barrier. However, the barrier won't have anything to feed on if you eliminate their main attraction." Naruto replied, "All right, maybe Lucia can help me find it." Compared to Kyuubi, Naruto spoke more to himself. "You stated, you are surrounded by the unknown, how do you think you'll locate her?" Concentrating, Naruto furrowed his brows. Dante said something that made me think I could always feel Trish back in Wave. Even before I marked her, I believe that her service to the Sparta line is a contributing factor. Thus, if Lucia is a servant as well, I ought to. Naruto trailed off. It's ba bum, ba bum, ba bum. The teen's body pulsed, emitting waves that resembled sonar. It took years to learn how to do this correctly, and he had done it on his first try. Amazing, Kyuubi thought, feeling fortunate that Naruto was too distracted to notice her surprise. Found her, and the focal point. He opened his bright red eyes and looked off into the distance. He walked quickly over to one of the unobstructed doors and pushed against it without success. Young one, it's locked. This indicates that they could feel your pulse. Your action was both wise and risky. Now, as we speak, they're probably laying a trap. Naruto persisted in pushing in spite of her statements. The wood surrounding the teen's hands splintered inwards, causing the door to tremble and groan as the Kyuubi sighed and prepared to reprimand him further. The door was blasted off its hinges, and Naruto's devil bringer started to glow menacingly. He avoided the scarecrows that were waiting to ambush him. To catch his breath, Naruto crouched in the doorway. The low-level demons were frightened when he looked up and showed off his red eyes. You are being foolish. You must give yourself time to recover, Kyuubi yelled. He was under too much stress from the battles without breaks, the huge energy releases to devil trigger against the frosts, the pulse to find the servant, and yanking open the door all at once. He stood up straight and entered the torture room. He stepped into murky, ankle-deep waters, but he ignored them. Waves of darkness's power rolled off him, gathered in his body and blade around him. 6 blue phantom swords that resembled large, two-bladed shuriken began to spin like buzzsaws. As if to escape, the demons retreated. The teenager laughed as his devil bringer spread a blue aura throughout his body, blending with his dark slayer energy. Calmly, the boy said, "You shall die." Before they could flee, the armored Naruto or the spectral blue monster that loomed behind him killed all of the scarecrows. Jiraiya was who? The response would vary depending on who you asked, or more precisely, which gender you asked. He might be a great writer and genius, or he might be a huge pervert with unforgivable behavior. However, those were responses that came from his work on the well-known Icha Icha series, and that was also where the answers diverged. One of the strongest ninja to ever emerge from Konoha was Jiraiya, and she remains so today. He was one of the best ninjas, both alive and dead. Interestingly, Jiraiya didn't think highly of his abilities for being such a strong and skilled ninja. He would assume that if you discussed his fame with him, you were referring to the notoriety his novels had brought him. Ironically, he would also constantly boast about his perverted personality, even going so far as to refer to himself as a super pervert, in order to distinguish himself from others. But he would never mention his ninja prowess. But that didn't mean he wasn't above using those skills to beat you up if you got in the way of his research, as he called it, demonstrating that he hadn't slackened off in any way over the years. Although Jiraiya is past his prime, one wouldn't be able to tell the difference if they were to fight him. In actuality, Jiraiya had only gotten stronger. His extensive knowledge, insight, and life experience more than made up for his lack of youth. One of the legendary 3 ninja, or Densetsu no Sanin, who departed Konoha. This leads us to the following query: why was he in the market district of Konoha? Of course, he was headed to the hot springs to conduct research. During his travels, Jiraiya conducted research in numerous towns, but not all of them had the large hot springs Konoha provided or the general population of women who were kunoichi with bodies to die for. And had it not been for a word that piqued his curiosity, he would have arrived there as well. Naruto, he turned and saw 2 women entering a clothes store. He trailed in after them. Fortunately for him, it was a store selling ninja gear, so his arrival just after the women wasn't spooky or suspicious. In his debut novel, the protagonist was named Naruto. Are they talking about it? The fact that they were 2 beautiful women also helped, and he would love to know what they thought of it. He approached the display case next to the shinobi clothes, where he could hear them talking clearly. In order to avoid appearing suspicious, he examined some paper and seal ink while he was there. He picked them up and listened as the 2 women started talking, thinking, may as well get some since I'm here anyway. The brunette questioned, do you think Naruto will make it back from the mission he received? It's not that I doubt him, it is Naruto we're talking about, but I can't help but feel a little worried. The odds just seem stacked against him. He doesn't have hardly any information on what he is up against or even where he is. Is she still working on the book? The recluse pondered. With assurance, the blonde replied, Naruto-sama will be fine, lady. Jiraiya used a few scrolls to select the ink bottles he desired. That's it. Then the brunette must have heard about my book from the blonde. She must be worried about the outcome of the last mission. I wonder if the blonde, who must be a huge fan of Naruto's character, would be interested in meeting the author who inspired him. Until the next question, Jiraiya was certain he understood the situation. Holding up a shirt, the blonde questioned, "Do you think this will fit Naruto-sama?" On his way to the register, Jiraiya almost stumbled. "What? No one in Konoha is named Naruto except..." Wait. No, Minato's brat is most likely just going through puberty even though Minato was a ladies' man. How could the brat have two attractive women at the age of 13? "I'm not sure, Trish, I've never even seen Naruto in a shirt before." Lady, the brunette, spoke with a slight flush. She concluded, "But honestly, I like his shirtless trenchcoat look." Trish picked out clothes in dark blues, reds, and blacks and thought, "Yeah, but it offers very little protection." I also believe he is outgrowing his flashy rebellious stage with the trench coat and becoming more serious. Lady regarded some of the weapon display cases critically and said, "Whatever, I just want to get back to our shopping. We're still saving a little for a soak in the hot spring when he gets back, right?" "Here is your change, sir." Jiraiya returned her attention to the clerk. "Yes, thank you." He left with composure, his mind racing. This needs to be investigated. Naruto staggered up the next room's curved stairs. By the time he reached the summit, his form was free of all demonic energy. In an attempt to look around, catch his breath, and relieve his headache, he sat down. "I take back calling you foolish. That was complete stupidity what you did. 3 fights, 2 devil triggers, and a pulse to locate Lucia. At this rate you won't have to worry about the demons killing you. You'll kill yourself before they even find you." All the while, Kyuubi was determined to make his migraine worse. "You may be half devil, but you're half human as well. The devil may not need time to heal or rest, but the human does. Honestly, there are times I question how we've come so far." After catching his breath and letting his body recover, the teenager muttered, "I feel so strong here. This place is filled with demons, causing dark energy to concentrate in the castle. When their demons also release a small amount of that power, your body instinctively absorbs these energies, sustain itself and become stronger. But since you've never been in such an area, your mind isn't gauging the amount you are taking in correctly. Your mind thinks your body is taking in more than it really is." Naruto stood up and faced the doorway that the stairs had opened into. His seal burned uneasily at his remark. Fine, don't get your tails in a bunch." When the floor ended, he had to stop short. Beneath him was the torture chamber in which he fought. He was several feet above the spikes on the ceiling. He peered past the blood-stained walls and noticed an opening in the side of the room, as well as another platform. Naruto said in a bored voice, "Please." He vanished and then resurfaced on the platform that led to the exit. He threw open the doors and said, "As if that would stop me." Naruto surveyed his surroundings. Snow was already gathering because of the open doorway when he entered the castle through the main entrance, which was darkening and had balconies overlooking the area. He touched the barrier that separated the railing and said, "I don't remember this being here." "Don't touch it." Naruto's hand came to a stop. "That's strong, huh? You won't have a hand left." Naruto walked to the opposite side of the balcony and remarked, "I must be getting close." Again, picking himself up off the ground, Sasuke breathed sharply, "Sadistic bitch." Anko grinned and said, "Flattery will get you everywhere. Sasuke-kun, you heard Kakashi. You have to be able to create, at least, an incomplete Chidori in battle before you can begin refining it. Too bad you haven't even managed a spark yet." While Kakashi instructed Sakura, it was Sasuke's turn to train with Anko. She didn't really believe in holding back too much, but he was expected to use a Chidori. When sparring with her, he had been so busy defending himself against her attacks that he had not been able to focus on the jutsu. "You haven't given me enough time. I can't focus it," he yelled. "An enemy would have killed you by now. Stop focusing on just using the technique so much, focus on using it correctly," she said with a slight annoyance. Sasuke was not paying attention. He could sense the chakra building after flashing through the hand seals before a spark could ignite. Her leg slammed into his stomach. He flew across the clearing and landed face down. After bouncing off the ground, he pushed off, only to be pushed back into the ground after a foot. Chidori is an A-rank assassination technique. Pretty boy, it needs time, focus, and a high amount of chakra. You can't just try and use it when your opponent is on top of you. Especially when it's a new technique and you're fighting a vastly superior opponent, one who knows what you're trying to do. Her main focus would be to stop it. It should only be used as the first attack, the last attack, or both, never in between," Anko stated calmly. "But Kakashi," Sasuke said, attempting to deflect his attention. Harder this time. The foot pushed him back down. "Kakashi created the technique. You idiot. He spent years training with it, gaining the experience to perfect and master it in its highest form and in different ways. He is only able to create it so quickly because it's like second nature to him." She knelt and removed his face from the soil. "Just how many times have you seen him use it in battle? When did he use it?" Sasuke whispered something to himself. She pulled his hair and remarked, "I didn't hear you." you're going to have to speak up. Once, Sasuke choked in agony, pulling harder, she said, and? As a finishing move after he had already trapped the enemy, when she released her grip, Sasuke's face struck the ground. She mockingly remarked, "Good boy, now we're getting somewhere." After giving him a head pat, she left him. "Now get your ass up." The boy remained motionless with a frustrated tone. Anko asked, "You finally get somewhere and you want to give up?" But the boy didn't respond. "I'm sure Naruto-kun would still be fighting. Hell, Naruto-kun would have mastered the technique by now. Even without your little Sharingan, I get a shiver just thinking about it. He's getting stronger as we speak while you're just lying there like a kicked pup." "Shut up." Sasuke lunged forward, his Sharingan eyes blazing, a shaky attempt at a Chidori in his hand. Sakura and Kakashi were in a clearing when 1,000 birds began to screech their battle cry. "I'm surprised that you surprised me on the first day. Sasuke, do you think Naruto is that difficult?" Should the boy appear to be giving up, Kakashi had instructed Anko to agitate him by bringing up the silver-haired teenager, but he never thought he would form the Chidori in just a few hours. With a sigh, the Chunin returned his attention to Sakura opposite him. She stood atop the lake. "Remember, Sakura, Suiden techniques are much more diverse than Kaden, suitable for offense and defense. While it requires slightly less chakra to perform Suiden, the control needed is considerably higher. You cannot overload a Suiden technique with chakra like a Kaden." Kakashi's lecture was interrupted by the sound of 1,000 birds. The visible eye of the Chunin grew wide. "The cursed seal is not the answer, Sasuke." The sound of electricity persisted even though the birds' cries were cut off. Kakashi became acutely aware that the sound was approaching rapidly by the time Sasuke burst from the trees. The Chunin had already snatched Sakura from the water's surface and leapt away. Alistair, crackling with electricity, was in his hand as the cursed seal's right side was covered in markings resembling flames. Anko appeared behind the boy and kicked him into the air as he skipped across the lake's surface. The boy's limp body was viciously slammed back into the hard ground by Anko, who appeared over him. Looking up into the dark sky, the Uchiha lay in the crater above him. The image of Naruto seemed to be brimming with strength. He shakily extended his hand and gestured to Alistair. Alistair released a few dying sparks before the blade dropped from his grasp and Sasuke succumbed to the darkness. "I will catch up to you and I will surpass you." He looked at the books lining the walls and remarked, "They trapped her in the library. But just where is she?" He turned the pages of an open book on the table, pausing when he saw that it was someone's log. "Day 698. I had assumed that the experiments would fail and that I was wasting my time, but I've succeeded. My first animal was a hellfire-powered hound. I refer to it as a basilisk because it is extremely nimble, can run quickly both short and long distances, and can shoot its own skull at an opponent before quickly regenerating that head with fire. I have to complete my other experiments because there is so much more to do. Then there are the ninjas that Santos has been battling. We will shortly depart to witness the devil-human hybrid he mentioned, which is akin to Dante but distinct from him. However, we must first acquire Force Edge." When Naruto heard the sound of quick movement behind him, he pocketed it and turned around, thinking, "This could be useful." Yamato gestured toward a man wearing an intricate suit of armor, which included a shield and lance. Naruto said, "That's a good way to get yourself killed." The man did not respond. He simply stood there, staring at Naruto's devil bringer through his covered eyes. Ignoring him, Naruto returned his attention to the books in search of anything more helpful. Naruto attempted to strike up a conversation by asking, "You a devil hunter?" but was ignored. He turned to look at the man who was cautiously coming toward him. "Silent type, huh? Well, that's annoying." He aimed his lance and struck. As soon as the armored man was sufficiently close, the lance was inches from Naruto's face. When he turned and caught it in a book, they remained motionless. "Listen, I don't know who you are and honestly I don't care, but you get in my way and I'll kill you," Naruto said recklessly. The man lunged forward, twisting his lance free. After dodging a ferocious stab, Naruto danced away from the swings that shattered the table and the trinkets he had been near. "Come on, if you want to fight," Naruto exclaimed. The man took a ready stance and withdrew his lance from the debris with a hollow war cry. Naruto was then surrounded by two more. The first one was charged by Naruto. Makazuki no Mai, Naruto's delusions encircled the man. A number of Naruto stabbed him from behind and the side after he raised his shield to block the first one. "It's a demon." When the man stopped bleeding, Naruto realized Naruto left his clones to trap the man. As he leapt away, the creature was killed and his clones were scattered as thousands of slashes appeared in the air around them and exploded. "Vroom, vroom." Naruto blurred out of the way of the charging demon knight, saying, "That sounds like Red Queen." Waiting for him was the other. It attempted to strike him with its shield, but Naruto used his Devil Bringer to punch through it and shatter it. Naruto's power stunned the creature, causing it to drop its lance. Naruto delivered a judgment cut straight to his face using the shock. Naruto used his ethereal Devil Bringer to grab the fallen lance. After kicking it into the air, Naruto threw the lance like a javelin after the demon that had charged him had just recovered it. Pinned the demon armor to the wall after tearing through it. Before exploding in light, their empty armor clattered to the ground. A bookcase on the side wall slid over when the last one fell. A woman was inside the room, which had a big dome of ice. He walked over and looked at everything with a keen eye, saying, "This must be Lucia," clearly keeping the ice intact. A glowing piece of metal floated in front. "What kind of weapon is it, though? This must be what I sensed." An exquisite rose pattern was engraved to cover the entire weapon, and the wooden handle changed to rusty metal to form two tubes. He read the text on the side, looking more closely, "Blue Rose." It was instantly absorbed by Naruto's Devil Bringer. As he grabbed it out of the air, the ice started to melt since it had nothing to keep it together. He finally got a good look at Lucia, with her chocolate skin, long blood-red hair, and gentle angelic features, after catching her as she fell from her icy prison. Naruto removed his coat in order to cover her since she was also totally nude. He asked the Kyuubi as he carried her bridal gown out of the library, "What now? I doubt she'd be able to help much in the condition she's in. The barriers have weakened." "It seems that was the core. Without it the barriers should be like glass," the Kyuubi replied. With a dangerous tone, Naruto said, "Let's finish this. It's very tranquil, NYU. Gaara was overlooked by the full moon. Only in her imagination did she see her counterpart sitting next to her on the roof. They were able to simply observe the stunning scene in front of them. For the first time they could enjoy the moonlight instead of fighting him for control of their own bodies. Because his screams and bloodlust had stopped, they still found sleep odd and alien, and it was simpler to simply take in their surroundings in a way that was previously impossible. Many were surprised by their body's unexpected growth, but they valued their lives too highly to discuss it. Why had the sand and sound changed their policy when they already knew she was prohibited? They didn't know she had a mate because it wasn't worth it, but she was strong enough to easily crush a Chunin and had only gotten stronger with the control her mate had given her. As naughty memories of Naruto flooded their minds, they flushed. They would follow him to the end of the world and crush anyone who threatened him because their loyalty to him was equal to their love. She was distracted from her increasingly detailed thoughts about Naruto's body by the abrupt shout, "Don't you sleep?" Like a mummy, she gazed at the sound. Genin rapped, "Leave us, we do not seek any blood, only peace and quiet." "Well, that's too bad. See, you're an obstacle between me and that bastard, Naruto. I don't care about Orochimaru's pet, Sasuke-kun. I want to make that silver-haired punk pay for humiliating me." A change occurred in the eyes of both Gaara and the illusionary NYU when the red-headed person finally asked, "You seek to harm Naruto-sama?" The genin fell to his knees with the intention of killing him. "No, I don't want to hurt him, I want to kill him. Now let's see if that sand of yours is faster than my sound." He almost got wet from the crazy sparkle in Gaara's eyes, and her words were filled with barely controlled anger. We will not allow you to harm Naruto-sama." His visible eye grew wide as the entire building was enveloped in the shadow of the sand. The boy was able to cry out, "What are you?" before he was taken by death. From a distance, two men heard the sound ninja's agonized scream but did nothing to help him. Even though he was the girl's Chunin sensei, the sound ninja raised an eyebrow at the amazing performance as the sand ninja looked on in wonder. The other man tensed just enough to be barely perceptible. He raised his glasses a bit. "Would you mind taking care of the straggler? I have urgent business I must attend to." Lucia was slipping in and out of awareness. Her body felt unresponsive and numb when she attempted to move. Did she float? No, she was being carried by someone. She had trouble forming the necessary words because her mouth was dry. She was exhausted. She rasped, "Dante-sama." Out there was silence for a moment as though he remembered something. "No, but don't worry about it. I get that a lot. If it's not him, it's Sparta. I'm thinking about keeping my hair long just to be different, or I could try and get a different shorter hairstyle. He's descended from Sparta." Lucia's body would not listen to her attempts to open her eyes. With a few last words of caution, she slipped back into unconsciousness. Beware Dagon and Bael. As Lucia went unconscious, Naruto carried on thinking at a leisurely pace, "I could try spiking it or slicking it back, maybe a combination of both. Aw hell, I'll worry about it later, after I kill this thing and get back." After carefully placing her in a corner, Naruto made multiple shadow clones. "Guard her. Anything that gets close dies, understood?" The clones reacted, "Sir," and advanced toward the woman. They were extremely good fighters even though they lost the demonic powers that belonged to their creator. Before entering the darkness, Naruto crashed through the frozen door that had previously been shielded by a barrier. Beyond the door was a huge battleground that resembled a coliseum. As he confronted the two demons that were causing all the trouble, Naruto made an effort to contain his laughter. "You're kidding me, right? Toads." Two tiny, female-shaped nymphs serve as lures for these monstrous ice creatures that resemble toads. The nymphs were attached to the beasts' foreheads by slender antennae. They had icicle-like projections from the top of their head and tail. They were identical except for the fact that one of them had red lures and the other blue. Naruto's laughter appeared to annoy the toad demons. Naruto's laughter was abruptly cut off by the red one's roar. "How dare you insult us, human? We are the strongest of ice demons." The boy continued to smile as the blue one lunged and swallowed Naruto. "Brother Dagon, I could not stand the human. He got what he deserved. Ahhhhh." His brother was eyed by the red one. He said, "Brother Bael." But Bael's cries of agony persisted. "Brother, what ails you?" Red Queen cut the blue demon's eye from the inside, causing blood to shoot out. It retreated, but the cuts and punctures persisted as Naruto exploded out of Bael's back, splattering ice and blood all over the place. Dagon watched in horror. Dagon witnessed the lifeless heap of Bael's body fall to the ground. His younger brother was just completely destroyed by this human. Dagon turned back to the teenager, who was attempting to remove the blood from his pants by brushing them. The teenager pointed to his hair and exclaimed, "Nasty. Do you have any fucking idea how hard it is to wash this? This better come out," he exclaimed to Dagon, who was stunned. Dagon yelled, "I will crush you," and sprayed Naruto with his saliva. As he revved Red Queen, Naruto said, clearly not amused, "Damn, do you realize just how much you stink?" Giant ice spikes erupted from the toad's forehead, and it roared in front of the demon. Naruto shifted and then reappeared. Dagon leapt back in surprise to get some separation after landing. He inhaled deeply after witnessing the demon's expansion. Naruto saw it spew out ice and a dark gas that covered the surrounding area. The enormous demon appeared to blend into the shadows. As the two nymphs started to dance around him, Naruto remarked, "So this is how you managed to ambush Lucia?" Naruto snatched one of the nymphs with his ethereal devil bringer, saying, "You hide in the shadows. You're too weak to face your opponents head-on." The enormous toad demon was yanked out of the shadows by the teenager. The enormous creature whirled around him until its antenna broke. Naruto was left clutching the little nymph as Dagon flew and crashed into the nearby walls. The tiny, fragile-looking creature writhed in his hands before glowing and being engulfed by his devil bringer. "You worm you cannot defeat," Naruto interrupted Dagon by piercing the Red Queen's skull deep. The creature froze over completely and broke as Naruto leapt away. With a flick of the slimy blood from Red Queen's blade, Naruto swapped Yamato for it. "I really didn't expect you to defeat them so easily, Naruto-kun, even if they're not the strongest in battle," an enigmatic voice said. With memories of his cage Bunshin rushing back to him, Naruto turned toward the entrance. "I knew you were going to be trouble, Kabuto." With an exact replica of Yamato at his side, Kabuto stood in front of him, his red eyes gleaming and gazing directly into his. Naruto surveyed the teenager in front of him and inquired, "What did you do to Lucia?" He wore a pair of clawed gauntlets and black greaves with glowing white highlights, in addition to the exact replica of Yamato by his side. Observing his gaze, Kabuto inquired, "Like them?" He clenched his fist, causing gauntlets and sorrows to shine. Yamato, the blade forged of darkness, said to be able to cut through anything, and Beowulf, the light beast, a demon that opposed me in one of my expeditions. I destroyed him and took his soul as my weapon. You're not the only one who has fought the demons Dante left behind. Still closely observing him, Naruto said, "I asked you a question." In contrast to the first and second exams, he was not wearing shinobi gear. He was now dressed in a dark purple, detailed silk coat with red trim around the collar, wrists, and tail. Beneath that were purple pants made of pure silk and a red shirt. "Don't worry, I only destroyed the clones to get your attention. I have no need to spill Lucia's blood when she could prove to be a valuable servant in the very near future, and I must say I am slightly surprised by your effortless defeat of Dagon and Bael." Kabuto began to draw his Yamato. Naruto did the same, but he said nothing when the blades were released from their sheaths. They both hummed softly. "What's wrong? Don't you want to play, Naruto-kun? I came here just to see what competition I'm up against, and after seeing your trek through this castle, I'm not impressed," Kabuto said ominously, his eyes turning red. Without flinching, Naruto's gaze locked with Kabuto's, asking, "How did you get here anyway?" Naruto arched an eyebrow at Dante's claim that the gate that Dante left was open to all with Sparta's blood in their veins. Sparks flew and Kabuto abruptly blurred as Naruto narrowly avoided taking his head in a blow. As Kabuto applied more pressure to the lock, making their blades tremble, Naruto sounded out, "Just what the hell are you?" A crazy flash came into Kabuto's eyes when Kabuto's illusion vanished and his actual appearance, ghostly pale skin with blue markings on his face, was revealed. Naruto's eyes widened. Naruto, descendant of Sparta and one of the two successors of Virgil, is it not obvious? A sudden surge of energy blasted Naruto back, announcing, I am Kabuto, descendant of Sparta and the successor of Virgil's corrupted power. To stop Yamato from flying backward, Naruto stabbed him into the ground after releasing his sword. Naruto questioned, so you're just a fake, right? I should have known when I saw the copy of Yamato. Kabuto frowned as the glint vanished dangerously. He said, funny, though I assure you I am no fake. But my power is still incomplete and for that to be remedied you must die. Suddenly charging, Kabuto made deep cuts in the surrounding earth with his flashing blade. Kabuto continued to push Naruto back with the force of his attack, but Naruto was prepared for the blow this time and stopped the blade just inches from his face. Naruto's sword glowed and he dug his feet into the earth. His blade exploded with a judgment cut, sending Kabuto flying and off his feet. The Jinchuriki's ethereal devil bringer came next. Kabuto simply grinned and twisted out of the way with ease to land lightly. As he watched Naruto's arm retract, Kabuto remarked in a bored manner, I expected more. He started to remove his imaginary dust while he was surrounded by luminous phantom swords. Kabuto's summoned swords resembled broadswords in design, in contrast to Naruto's, which appeared as massive two-bladed shuriken. If that is all you can do, I really must be ending this. The blades were now arranged so that Naruto could be skewered from all sides around him. Naruto's own phantom swords materialized, colliding and breaking Kabuto's. As he sheathed his sword and assumed a ready stance, Naruto boastfully remarked, I'm just getting warmed up, asshole. Kabuto reprimanded, your stubborn attitude is unfit for a successor of Virgil. You are still too weak. In his ear, Naruto twisted his pinky. What? I must have a hell of a lot of wax in my ears. I could have swore you just called me weak. Oh, you heard right, of course I understand if you were a little slow getting it with your limited brain capacity, Kabuto grinned. Oh, now I'm really hearing things. I could have sworn I heard a corpse dropping, Naruto replied. Yours. Kabuto's Yamato pierced right through Naruto's Devilbringer arm, which he raised in self-defense, and dug deep into his heart. The teenager went up in smoke a moment later, but Naruto couldn't help his look of surprise. Naruto turned back to his arm to observe the wound in his Devilbringer up close as he watched from the opposite side of the entrance other than his own, which he had accidentally found. No weapon in Naruto's life had ever been able to even scratch his demonic arm. That blade is actually Yamato's equivalent. With his glasses adjusted and his emotions controlled, Kabuto remarked, I should have known, distracting me while making a cage bunshin to replace yourself with. Not bad, sheathed his Yamato, Kabuto said. But not good enough. He threw a fireball that had been directed at his blind spot back into the air. Kabuto watched Naruto leap into the air in front of the fireball as his eyes followed it behind Naruto. The blast burst, momentarily transforming into a tiny sun that was blindingly bright. Because of his demonic healing powers, Kabuto's sight returned almost immediately, just in time to see Naruto's flame-covered form fall toward him. He watched as Naruto emerged from the flaming crater, smoke rising from his body, and he threw himself back as Naruto collided with the ground in front of him. When the madness returned, Kabuto yelled, yes, that's it Naruto, show me all your power. Kabuto savagely thrust an arm out, sending a beam of light toward Naruto, and Beowulf glowed. Naruto released a torrent of flames to meet it as he spread his arms wide and swept them low in front of him. Raging hellfire and condensed light fought and struggled for supremacy at the same moment. They both broke off. Shadows danced across Naruto's body as fire sizzled around him, and Kabuto smiled, his glowing highlights giving him an absolutely insane appearance. With both hands clasped together, Kabuto released another beam of light energy. This is getting fun. I wonder just how long can you keep up, Naruto? He asked. After launching himself into the air by blasting the ground below, Naruto retaliated by hurling a fireball at the exposed Kabuto. Kabuto was propelled out of the way as light burst from his greaves. Naruto was clotheslined and launched sprawling into the air as soon as he touched down, while Kabuto zipped off to get momentum for his next attack. The world whirled around him. Naruto fell heavily onto his back, flung his legs out, and spun like a top, collecting all of the flames on the battlefield and then spreading the ring in all directions. When the fire ripped at Kabuto's legs, he was caught off guard and fell to the ground because he hadn't anticipated this. With their fists colliding in a tremendous explosion that produced a swirling dome of fire and light, both stood and charged at each other. When the energy subsided, they could be seen struggling and attempting to knock each other to their knees. Naruto made fun of Kabuto by saying, "You talk a lot of trash, Kabuto. Yet I haven't even worked up a sweat and I'm the one playing with fire. However, this was a lie. He was breathing heavily and perspiring profusely, which were signs that he was getting tired. Kabuto said, "You are nothing compared to me," and Naruto was forced to his knees, but for some strange reason. Kabuto added, his insane expression deepening, "I want to know why, show me why." Kabuto abruptly changed into his devil form. "Your growth, your power overshadows mine." Trish, the priestess, and even the son of Sparta were drawn to you. They noticed your existence first. Naruto was launched into the air and brutally beaten. Before he could mount any defense, he was flung around like a rag doll as blow after blow came at him from all sides, turning Ifrit back into Yamato and losing even the fabled blade. He was buried in concrete after a final blow sent him crashing into the Colosseum's side. A tiny glimpse of Naruto's devil bringer could be seen emerging from the pile of rubble as the Jinchuriki pushed the debris away. His demonic powers battled to mend his damaged organs and put his broken bones back together. His demonic instinct ignored the many bloody gashes, concentrating instead on the greatest harm, on surviving. Naruto dragged himself out and stumbled to his feet, thinking, "Ouch." Before him, a fresh Kabuto snatched him in a chokehold and used one hand to lift him off his feet. Despite being completely corrupted, Beowulf still had glowing highlights and assumed the appearance of dark greenish knight armor, now a big black two-hander. Yamato glowed in his hand with a dark, unholy light. If not taller, the demonic knight was roughly the same height as his Ifrit devil form. Blood came out of Naruto's cough. The grip tightened, and despite the blood dripping from his mouth, Naruto managed to smile. "Damn Kabuto, nice armor, now strike a pose." The younger teen fell to the ground as Kabuto transformed back into a human. "You still mock me even on the brink of death?" Defiantly, Naruto spat, "I've had worse than this." Kabuto yelled impatiently, "I want to crush you at your strongest. Reveal your devil form." Naruto tried to move his heavy limbs and said, "I can't, asshole, not enough control." Kabuto smirked as he realized, "You're mocking me. I felt you transform twice from Konoha. Show me. Or perhaps you need a little motivation to devil trigger?" When Kabuto stabbed Naruto in the chest with his tainted blade and pinned him to the ground, Naruto let out a painful hiss after stepping on Naruto and violently yanking it out. Kabuto stepped back to wait expectantly. This new wound was too much for Naruto, whose demonic regeneration was already starting to wane. The only thing that could be done was to repair his organs to lessen the bleeding a little. Pushing himself up, he managed to point at the bloody hole in his chest and say, "Hey, that kind of tickled." Kabuto turned and started to leave. "Pathetic, you're not even worth killing." With his body failing him, Naruto rolled onto his stomach and fought to crawl after the older half-breed, leaving a trail of blood. Although he said, "Hey, don't walk away from me. I'm not done with you," he still received no response. "I can't let him win. I refuse. Kyuubi." Somewhere in the back of his mind he let out a desperate cry, "Give me more authority." The stunning crimson figure of Kyuubi appeared in midair and approached him directly. Her 9 tails swaying behind her, she knelt before him, stroking his cheek, making the whisker lines darken and thicken a bit as a dark red miasma started to swirl around them. A lovely smile spread across her face. "It can't help you." With an agonizing shriek reverberating in his head, Naruto was jolted out of his reverie. Something warm was dripping from his nose, and when he wiped it, his hand turned red with trembling eyes. He looked up to see what had happened and saw Kabuto's demonic form, poised to kill him with its enormous blade. Even though death was creeping toward Naruto, a soft warmth enveloped him, calming his body and mind. With weakness, a voice asked, "Are you giving up? Can't you hear them calling?" Behind Kabuto, moving in slow motion, 2 hazy shapes of Virgil and his ghostly demon hovered. "Listen. Remember who you are." As if responding to something inside Naruto's demonic arm, Yamato trembled and ripped itself from the ground, flying into Naruto's devil bringer and obstructing the enormous two-hander in order to avoid the slash from the ghostly demon that materialized behind the former blonde. Kabuto threw himself back. While his devil bringer crawled over him to make his armor, Naruto stood composedly. "I am Uzumaki Naruto." Oddly, a highly intricate tanto with a rose-engraved blue blade and wooden handle now matched Yamato. While his specter hunched, its hand hovering over the sheathed Yamato in its left arm, Naruto knelt down and dragged Yamato behind him. Kabuto lifted his own tainted weapon into the air across the battlefield. The blades started to glow and hum as though they were calling to one another, and dark energy swirled around them both. Both demons unleashed their combined strength in a tremendous shockwave. At an unspoken command, Kabuto's unholy flaming crescent met Naruto's maximum bet, a sideways X that smashed across the arena. As the sun rose above the snow-capped mountains, a pillar of energy burst from the Colosseum and shot skyward. Kabuto stood above Naruto with his blade at his neck as he breathed harshly on his knee. They had both transformed back into humans. Kabuto sheathed his blade and laughed. He leapt into the air, blurring and vanishing from view. It seems like I've run out of time, but you're not strong enough to kill yet. I suggest you gain more control. I will not be as merciful the next time we meet. With a heavy sigh, Naruto collapsed onto his back as his remaining strength failed him. I lost. Kabuto made a soft landing back at the portal. Kabuto had to fight the impulse to lash out at the voice for ambushing him. So why didn't you kill him? He resheathed a half-drawn Yamato and activated the henge that concealed his tainted appearance as he turned to face Dante. I want to destroy him at his strongest. It is the only way to prove I am the rightful successor to all of Virgil's power. The teenager replied quietly. Kabuto attempted to strike, but the blade at his neck prevented him from making an inch. Or do you want me to take your place? He asked. Unfazed, Dante remarked, don't get too cocky, kid, you're nowhere near my level. With one last word, Kabuto stepped back and entered the portal. Yet. When Sasuke woke up from his sleep, he moaned. The sight of pink met his eyes as he opened them. It wasn't until Sakura hovered over him that he noticed his head was in her lap and covered with a wet rag. He saw that she was sound asleep as his eyes adapted to the morning light. It was nearly impossible for him to accept that the kunoichi had once been a weak girl in his fan club. She looked so. The dark bags under her eyes caught his attention. Did she spend the entire night training? Any more thoughts were stopped by the voice of his nightmares. Finally awake, pretty boy. Anko winked suggestively and smiled lustfully. Sakura chose this moment to wake up as Sasuke attempted to get up, saying, you seem comfy on your girlfriend's lap. Their faces were so close that they both flushed. Anko's wild laughter grew as the two genins' humiliation grew. Hold on, you two, the Uchiha clan doesn't have to be revived so quickly. In order to avoid further suffering, the two immediately leapt apart. Kakashi's tone caused Anko to instantly quiet down, saying, Anko, that's enough. The one-eyed Chunin was leaning against a tree when Sakura and Sasuke turned to face it. The calm before the storm seemed to be perfectly embodied by the man. And, Sakura, he added, please inform Sasuke of the damage he sustained while wielding Alistair. Why yes, beside the Ten-no Juin momentarily bypassing the Fujihoin, there was second-degree burns to the right arm and slight nervous damage caused by the blade. We've discovered that the markings are a sign of mutation that allows the body to resist the blade's powers, Sakura responded. Sasuke said, flexing his arm and searching for his sword, but my arm feels fine. Alistair stood motionless by the river. Anko gave a snort. Only because your girlfriend here stayed up all night mending the damage. It was a good test for her to use the Shosen no Jutsu. It also allowed deeper analysis of the Ten-no Juin and Alistair and how they react to each other. Sasuke had gone to get his sword during Anko's statement when a lump of metal struck the ground in front of him. After putting Alistair back in its sheath, Sasuke questioned, what's this supposed to be? When the weight on his back became so familiar that he was unaware of it, the discomfort subsided. With a chilly gaze fixed on the Uchiha, Kakashi quickly drew closer to them. When Sasuke saw his sensei acting hostilely, he met his gaze obstinately and unconsciously activated his Sharingan. Sakura was certain that Kakashi's Sharingan would have been spinning wildly if it had been discovered. We are going to train your speed and taijutsu. Those are the weights you'll be wearing. As of now you are not to so much as touch that sword's hilt unless I allow it. Am I making myself perfectly clear? She asked. Sasuke maintained eye contact because he was too proud to back down. No, the boy yelled angrily. I need Alistair sensei. Kakashi walked a few feet away after suddenly spinning on his heel. Reaching up, he removed his headband and tossed it to Anko. Sakura was pulled along with the woman as she grabbed it and leapt away as one scroll and kunai fell into Kakashi's hands. He turned to face the Uchiha. The girl with the pink hair asked from a good distance away, what's happening, Anko-sensei? They were far enough away to avoid being caught in an attack, yet close enough for them to see and hear. Anko was silent for a while. Sakura's anxiety was not reduced by the statement, a lesson, whatever happens do not move from this spot unless I say so, or you'll be next. Kakashi smudged his finger on the paper after nicking it on the blade, and a brief tanto shot into the air with a puff of smoke. Kakashi deftly deflected the blade. Very well, if you think you can defy my orders then you must think you can defeat me. With obstinate pride that defied common sense, Sasuke assumed a stance and reached for his blade. Shutting his eyes, the man went on in amazement and horror. Sasuke saw Kakashi's Sharingan eye widen and a pure white aura radiate from him. I'm warning you now, if you touch that blade's hilt, I will not hold back. He asked. The three tomos shifted into a pinwheel shape as the man's red eye whirled wildly. Sasuke was able to stammer out, TT the M Magankyo. B but how? In a tiny whisper. It's similar to gazing into the sun. To avoid going blind, Sasuke cut off the chakra supply to his Sharingan. His mind was brutally assaulted by the overwhelming desire to kill, which brought him to his knees. The Magankyo of Kakashi appeared to pulse. Let me show you, Tsukuyomi. Thousands of pictures and emotions. Flash, and Uchiha, a feeling of profound appreciation. Flash, and Inuzuka, a yearning feeling of affection. Flash, and Naruto, with a sense of reverence for the picture. However, they were all accompanied by overwhelming guilt, another emotion. More pictures appeared, but they were too dim and faded away too soon to be properly described, as though one was choosing what it wanted to show him and in what quantity the images grew more intense, but they were still passing through his head too quickly for him to process any of them. He heard Kakashi's voice echoing, "My father, the only family I had, died. I was alone." When Sasuke eventually recovered, he discovered a man who had committed suicide in front of him. The scene was perfect because of the illusion that was Tsukuyomi. The man's blood was red and wet on the matted floor beneath him. I hated him for giving up on life and killing himself. I labeled him a disgrace and a failure. As a result, I followed the ninja code perfectly, striving to be the opposite of what he was. I became the perfect ninja and threw my emotions away. I lost my heart. Now that Sasuke was in front of 3 people, they were staring back at him as though they were waiting for him to catch up. But then, without even realizing it, I found friends, family, and my heart. When the man who Sasuke initially believed to be Naruto spoke, Sasuke realized he was actually the 4th Hokage. His voice had a cheerful, carefree tone to it, but it was also powerful and full of hidden power. Rules and regulations are important, of course, but that's not all. You also need to be able to adjust and deal with situations. The Uchiha incorporated the man's image. I had to show the way to an old woman carrying luggage. "It's pretty much healed now, but if you overdo it the wounds will reopen," the girl said, revealing that she was not an Inuzuka as he had previously believed. "They helped me realize how much of a fool I had been." The same Uchiha appeared enraged as the girl vanished, leaving him in her place. "We must save Rin, she is more crucial than the mission." To complete a mission, I was prepared to sacrifice the girl who repeatedly saved my life. Unlike my father, I was not going to prioritize my mission over my team trash. I didn't want to be a failure, but then I had a change of heart. I believe that the White Fang is a true hero. Of course those who break the rule are trash, but those who don't care about their companions are worse than trash. I was not going to abandon them. I went back. My father was not a failure and neither was I. That day I gained my Sharingan eye, Obito's eye, and lost Obito himself, my best friend. Sasuke observed what was happening in front of him as Kakashi told the story. Suddenly, he sensed a pull. He heard himself yelling something and felt his body moving quickly. "Obito, behind you." His left eye began to ache sharply. He saw Obito unlock his Sharingan and save him. Flash. He released Rin from a genjutsu as the action changed. In the youthful voice of Kakashi, he heard himself say, "Right. But we need to get out of here fast." The enemy's jutsu caused rocks to fall upon them. Sasuke believed the ninja was dead, but he was actually injured. He lost his balance and fell to the ground when a rock struck his blind spot. He was thrown out of the way, and the world shifted before briefly turning black. Once again, Sasuke was observing from a distance. Rubble partially crushed Obito's body. He attempted to look away, but the scene was all around him. "Hey Kakashi, you know I was the only one who didn't give you a present for your promotion to Chunin. I was wondering what would be good. I got it. How about this eye of mine?" Rin wiped away her tears, and Kakashi observed Obito's heroic struggle to survive. He went on in a feeble voice, "I'm going to die, but what kind of friend would I be just leaving you guys behind like this?" Even in the vast emptiness he found himself in, Obito's voice persisted as the scene faded. "I'll be your eye, and from now on I will see the future. Protect Rin." Before the world darkened once more, Sasuke briefly saw debris falling toward Obito's body. Seeing a Uchiha die brought back a lot of long-forgotten memories. He yelled, "Stop, I've seen enough. I don't want to know anymore. No, you need to see the price of the Mangenkyo." As Sasuke gazed down at a mutilated Rin, he failed to notice that they were both dressed in Anbu uniforms. "Sir, we're losing her," cried the medic beside him. With a desperate cry, he heard himself say, "Stay with me, Rin." He heard someone shout farther away, "Sir, the enemy is advancing." "Captain, the ambush was too much. There is only 4 of us remaining. We have to retreat. We won't be able to hold this area. Reinforcements are still too far off." This mission was nothing but a trap. Another replied, "The tension must be getting to him. Rin gave his cheek a gentle pat. She began to cry and her eyes began to get glossy as she said, Kakashi, I wanted to tell you, I'm pregnant, I wanted to have a family with you, maybe a few dogs too. Orders, sir. Unconsciously, Sasuke wondered if the tears streaming down his cheek were Kakashi's or his own. He grasped one of her icy hands. I'm so happy, Rin, all you have to do is hold on a little longer. Weakly, Rin held up her other hand. Obito. Kakashi, I can see Obito. Sir, she is fading. Rin. Before her arm went limp, she held her hand in the air as though someone was helping her up. Obito says he's not angry. You tried your best to protect me. Beside him, the medic remained quiet, ignoring the burning in his left eye. Sasuke stroked her cheek as though it would revive her. Sir, we need to retreat. The body of Sasuke moved by itself. His gaze was fixed on Rin, so he was unable to see what he was reaching for, but he could feel the rough paper. A plume of smoke followed the coppery taste in his mouth. A whispered voice asked, What? I thought that blade was broken. Sasuke got to his feet. Fall back, intercept our backup, take her body with you. But sir, that is an order, he said, staring at them and making them freeze in terror. He saw his image in his pristine white blade. He was stared back at by a new Sharingan. A pinwheel that appeared to be composed of 3 scythes took the place of the 3 tomos. A bright white flame flared around him, and his team began to slowly retreat. Dangerously, he asked, Did I stutter? The group ran away. The medic, however, remained beside him, paralyzed by terror. That was sufficient to break her paralysis. Get going, and if anything happens to her body, I make you regret being born. The scene changed with a single blink. The scene was littered with dead bodies. This way, holy shit. Kakashi and the pile of bodies he was standing on were shadowed by the rising sun. He grabbed a man's throat. The man's attention was drawn to the anbu by the snap of a twig. The man began to scream as soon as he was out of Kakashi's line of sight, but he was abruptly silenced with a loud snap. Sasuke felt a chill run down his spine from that red eye. Sakura and Anko simply stopped moving for a few seconds before moving again. Kakashi shut his Sharingan eye and entered the nearby forest silently. The Uchiha broke down in tears as she realized, he's just like me, so many emotions. Anko vanished into the foliage, undoubtedly following their sensei, saying, Watch the idiot Sakura, there is something I have to discuss with Kakashi. Sakura took a cautious approach to the boy. She had admired him since the academy because of his good looks, talent, and laid-back demeanor. He was the one she admired the most for his cool attitude. He didn't seem to be affected by anything that was said or happened. She may have developed a crush on him because it was so impressive to her, who was teased for having a big forehead. Sasuke. After gazing at the reforged fang, Kakashi let out a sigh as the depletion of his chakra reserves struck him. He decided to only use the Mangenkyo if he had no other choice. However, Sasuke needed to see the cost and consequences of power, and Kakashi needed the sword to do so because it gave him a chakra boost. Without the sword, he wasn't sure if he could defeat Tsukuyomi. Although he had not intended to go into such detail, his lack of experience had left him with only average control over the Mangenkyo. According to the Uchiha clan scrolls, the user is given 2 base techniques, the left eye holding Tsukuyomi and the right eye holding Amaterasu, as well as a third, exclusive to each user, once they have attained Mangenkyo. However, due to the high cost, the Mangenkyo was rarely acquired, so there was little to no information available about them other than the illusion. Tsukuyomi, he had not yet learned any techniques. Oddly, the Mangenkyo was also supposed to impair vision, but Kakashi had not yet suffered from the side effects, most likely because of the unique circumstances surrounding his eye acquisition. Kakashi, Anko said as he touched down on the branch up close to the copy nin. She practically lunged at him, snatching him by the throat and pushing him against the tree. What the fuck were you thinking? The kid was hospitalized by that jutsu, she exclaimed. Kakashi held his chakra blade by Anko's neck as their positions abruptly changed, trapping her against the tree. As she gazed into his distinct eyes, a chill ran down her spine. Even if the drain ultimately led to his death, Kakashi would be more than capable of matching the snake with his fang and the Mangenkyo, she was reminded, even though he was not on Orochimaru's level alone. I didn't use it like Itachi did. There was no intent to incapacitate or kill, just to show, the man replied. Anko saw their position and a sly expression came into her eyes. That still doesn't make it right. You work fast, don't you? When Rin's image briefly turned to face him, Kakashi couldn't resist giving her cheek a tender pat, but he quickly withdrew his hand when he realized what he was doing. He shook his head and staggered back. Kakashi gazed blankly into the trees in front of him, watching something she couldn't see, and said, Anko, would you watch them for me? I need time to think. Anko immediately ran away after realizing the hazardous atmosphere she had created. As he traveled to Orochimaru, Kabuto molded his face into the ideal mask, but he still needed to report what he had seen of the Suna Jinchuriki. If they only knew that Naruto's veins contained the same blood, the snake and that pitiful stuttering worm would still be examining the blood sample. He detested kneeling in front of this human scum, Orochimaru-sama. It wasn't until the snake began that Kabuto realized his error. How could I have acted with such recklessness? His skills had significantly improved from what Orochimaru was used to detecting, but he was still tense from his encounter with Naruto and Dante. As those obnoxious snake eyes attempted to interpret him, Kabuto continued his report, lowering his power even though he could easily kill the man while he was weak from his pointless quest for immortality. It was too early to reveal himself. When the snake finally looked away from him, Kabuto was once more safe. Kabuto, would you like to be the first of you to ascend? The man responded. He should have been more cautious because the snake was already suspicious. With all due respect, Orochimaru-sama, I do not believe my blood is compatible with his. However, Orochimaru appeared to accept his justification. In fact, he appeared almost pleased that the half-breed turned him down. Kabuto's illusion wavered, but the change was invisible in the low light, so it was a test. The snake hissed, then who do you think we should test it on? If you wish to continue with your plans to take the Sharingan, it would be best to see if any drawbacks may occur when one with a cursed seal ascends, so I suggest someone who has a cursed seal, someone loyal but is also expendable. How about Yuya?
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.